I'm starting the recording. Hello and welcome back to Retro Arcadia. We're here with Pablo and myself discussing this essay, which is titled Return to Dragon Quest Monsters, Metal Gear Solid or Kill All Pit Bulls. And we've got a little banner here. This is written by Pablo. It's a good essay. You should read it. If you haven't read it, we'll actually wait for you to go and read it, and then we'll get started.
Let us know in the chat. Let us know in the chat. If you don't say something, I assume you're reading.
Let us know. The banner here is just a screenshot of the beginning of Metal Gear outside of Shadow Moses. And I superimposed some pixelated pit bulls and enlarged their heads a little bit because I thought it was funny. They're kind of like sniffing in on Snake. One of them's getting in on him from behind. Not to tear him up, but to rip him up, rip his throat out, because they're bred for gameness. And there's a quote here. And there's a quote here from your essay. American Pit Bull Terrier is a result of eugenics program that has been operated by mankind for over 2 millennium. Dog breeding, according to our pals at Wikipedia, relies on the science of genetics, quote unquote, and a breeder who is knowledgeable of canine genetics, which gets us into what we're going to talk about. So I have some questions for you about your essay, and some of these are going to get really intense, like some serious shit. So the first question for all of our ADHD rattled people who are just watching this because it says Metal Gear in the title and they want to hear about Metal Gear Solid. We're going to go over some things about the game first, and I want you to outline your reality when you played Metal Gear Solid in this terrestrial temporal moment in space-time. And that's a quote from your own essay right here where it says terrestrial temporal. What was going on in your headspace? Like, what were you thinking about at this time in your life while you were playing this, while you were planning to write this? If you had to think back to that moment and that era.
So I just finished playing Metal Gear for the MSX, the original Metal Gear 1, I guess, and I really liked it, so I wanted to go through the series. I thought about doing Metal Gear 2, but kind of just wanted to change the pace. I've never beaten Metal Gear Solid 1. I've never finished it or played more than maybe a few hours of it, or the demos that came on like the Pizza Hut discs and stuff when we were little. So I wanted to give it a shot and get through it. I really enjoyed Metal Gear so much that going to the, what kind of blew the series up, seemed like the logical next step. But yeah, and I think I was, let's see, so it's been a couple, 3 games ago now, so it's been a while since I did this. This is probably around October, so I don't know. I don't remember exactly what I was doing like in my real life or anything, but I remember when we get more into some of the theme and how I encountered the theme, I was reading a lot, and I've got a small child at home, so thinking about him, and just really, and coming off of the last essay before this one, the idea of trying to find something really poignant and thematic, just one thing about the game that I could explode out into a bigger concept. And so I was looking at the game with that in mind. And I wish... I'm using... My phone's here. My camera's my phone. I was going to look at the notes and see if there's any hint at what the article was at first. Because it didn't start out about pit bulls. I don't remember if I had an idea or not. That's what I was. So essentially, where was I? I was playing the next game. I was trying to get through Kojima games and really look to see what all the hype was about. And then really hoping to... write something good, because I thought the Metal Gear MSX essay was decent, and I wanted to do something a little bit more interesting and out there and provocative.
Right, gotcha. Cool. Were you watching anything on TV at the same time? Like, when your wife wanted you to watch TV with her, or in your free time and you put something on TV? Was there anything you were watching at the time that you were playing or writing this essay?
I don't think I was. I think around this time I watched, because Bergman Films helped so much with the Final Fantasy 16 essay and gave me a lot to think about. So I definitely been wanting to watch more films. It's like on my list. I know I watched Stalker. That it's a Russian Tarkovsky film. I made it through that and really liked it. Um, I think I started a few more Bergman films and didn't finish. So like, yeah, kind of the filmic idea. You know, there was. I don't think there was as much. The Pitbull idea came from Reddit. Do you want to go into that now, or we use
Beautiful.
that in a later
No,
question?
I've got
But that came from
questions
Reddit.
about the game first.
Okay.
But I mean,
Um,
the film tie-in is relevant to Kojima. Obviously, 30% or ninety
yeah.
percent of his body is made of movies, according to himself.
Right. Yeah.
Um, yeah. What type of music were you listening to around this time? In the article, you reference Taking Back Sunday and Norma Jean. So is that what you were listening to around this time, or is that just something you put in the essay?
I think I was. I was. Well, I listened to that stuff pretty periodically, and I definitely had like a kind of that post-hardcore kick, like probably around that time. And it's been popping
Mm-hmm.
up recently. There was a lot of hip hop around this period. A lot of that trap, this really trashy hip hop listening around this time. But that came from when I think of Wikipedia, because Wikipedia shows up a lot in this, and I don't want to do that every time because then it ends up being like that whole dictionary reference. Webster says, but that helps. Sometimes that's useful and very good. So I
Yeah.
wanted to use it this time, and when I think of Wikipedia, I think of 2005. Like that, when I was in ninth grade. It was the first time I ever used it.
Mm-hmm.
My friend Emilio, that you know, I think he introduced it to me. He's like, "Man, it's all you can find all the stuff about your bands and just edit it." You know, this is before. This is back when the whole joke about it being unreliable was still like a good joke, right?
Yeah.
And you could make pages for yourself. So I remember one of the things that I looked at the most in those ninth grade computer labs when I would be on the computer was like, yeah, what's the history of Norma Jean? What's the Taking Back Sunday
Mm-hmm.
Facebook page? There was a whole lot of that going on.
Yeah, I
So
did
that's where
that
that came
too.
from.
I was
Hmm.
thinking recently about Wikipedia and the age of the internet, and as a writer, and you're a writer too. Arguably, we're writers, no matter how crappy we are. I'm a crappy writer. You're much better than I am. But I was thinking earlier, like some older writers might be averse to how much information that we have at our fingertips. To me, you could make the argument that somebody could just look something up and basically plagiarize something from Wikipedia and reword it and all this other stuff. But this problem has always existed. We can just get to the information a lot faster now, and I think
Yeah.
overall it's really good. So like, just for the sole fact of having this information, like let's say I'm writing something, right, and I think to add something into the essay, I still have to have that thought to go search for it, And if I don't have that thought, then I'm not just going to find it. There's still a level of ingenuity and creativity there that you have to know what to search for. It's not like this
Hmm.
all this information just makes you ultimately knowledgeable and just be able to plagiarize or draw from
Yeah.
whatever source that you possibly can at your fingertips, because you can't, because you need to have the knowledge of that existing to begin with and what to search for, right?
Yeah.
Something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm rambling. What were you
No,
reading?
and I think
Oh yeah,
I
go ahead.
think I was going to add to that a little bit. You know, I think about a lot because I as I've publicized on Mastodon, I'm working my way through Infinite Jest, and
Mm-hmm.
it's awesome. It's so cool. But I
Mm-hmm.
noticed this. I think about a lot about Foster Wallace and how he must have had to be in a library a lot, right? Because he has all these little like medical and physics little
Right.
things that I know is not his expertise. I know he either had to have a colleague to help, or he had to be deep into some medical journals in like
Exactly. Yeah.
1993, right? And so I'm sure it's great that we can streamline, and it's better now because even I'm not positive, but because I mean he's smarter than me, but like when I read some of the footnotes, I think with my knowledge, I'm thinking, okay, that's probably not exactly right. Like it's probably fine. It doesn't take me out of the novel, but I'm like, he was probably limited by his ability to fact check and because it's such a and it's not to detract from it, right? It's such a great work and so robust. I just bring it up because I'm reading it now, and it's full of things that must have been researched, right? Like
Yeah.
I think about when he talks about drugs, like he'll mention a drug, and there'll be a footnote, and that drug has all
Yeah.
like the scientific information about the drug, you
Right.
know.
Yep.
Um, and I think that's coming from the same thing. So we do have it easier now. If anything, you know, maybe even writers from 20 years ago might be jealous now at like what AI is going to do for like research and writing. You know, I don't really use it because I'm still like kind of scared of it in that regard. I don't, you know, there's that
I've.
feeling of like, is it okay to use? Like, how
I
much
think
can
it's
I
okay
use
to
before I'm
use.
crossing the line?
I think it's okay to use, and I've used it a few times for things other than like checking grammar and things of that nature. I've used it a few times for things like, tell me what, how this works or something. And then
Yeah,
it'll tell me
that's
how
what
it
I'm talking
works.
about, yeah.
It's like a Google search, but a little bit faster and a little bit easier. Like, tell me how this works, and then
Yeah.
I'll incorporate that into the writing. I don't think that's plagiarism. That's just doing
I don't know.
research. That's just doing research a lot faster than you would have
You're
when you had
asking
to
a
sit in the
computer
library.
instead of a human, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Or you're asking a computer instead of a book,
Right.
like David Foster Wallace
Right.
might have had to done when he was, sitting in a library writing parts of Infinite Jest or whatever and having to do research. Instead, I can just go to ChatGPT and say, hey, like, tell me how, the drug freaking methadone is created, or et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And then, just reword that or use that and incorporate it into the writing. So if anything, I think it's a good thing. There's obviously issues with the internet and all the digital garbage that we consume, but I don't think this is one of those issues, to be honest.
I think you're right. I know you want to go into that. This is good. I wonder if, like, you give me a good idea, because I think what I'll do is I'm having trouble right now. Just a brief aside, because I got you. I mean, I know we got 1 million viewers waiting on us, but
right, absolutely.
I'm writing a piece now. It's the Final Fantasy 13 essay. I'm working on it. I've written it like 4 times, I've started it 4 times, and I've got like 300 words on the current copy, so it's really difficult. But it's part of it involves like some church related stuff and some kinds of churches that I don't really go to. And I find I'm doing research. Right? I'm looking at Wikipedia. I'm watching YouTube videos of like church services, because like I want to get to that research phase. I think that's what makes some of DFW's writing, and probably any good writer that writes a lot about encyclopedic things like that. So I want to do that, but I bet asking GPT would probably be
Yeah, you should try it and see what
easier.
happens.
Yeah.
That's the thing about writing more stuff that's rooted in nonfiction than fiction, is like, I think nonfiction is a lot harder to write than just purely fictional stories like sci-fi or fantasy or whatever.
Yeah.
Because in those, you can just make everything up.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, right? You don't truly make anything up. Everything's based on, experiences that you had in life, and then you repurpose those, et cetera, et cetera. But you don't need to necessarily know how methadone is created when you're writing like a sci-fi story, unless it's like hard sci-fi and it's based in real life or whatever.
Right.
Like Lord of the Rings, for example.
Like Lord of the Rings, absolutely not. But I think of things like even in like Infinite Jest is a good example, because there's that halfway house, right? And what's so good about the halfway house parts is either he was in a halfway house, or he knew someone, or he did a lot of research.
David Foster Wallace was in and out of multiple halfway houses.
That makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It reads that he either did heavy research or experienced it. And you need to either experience it, I think, or you need to research it for it to work. Because, like, for me, who's never been to one, okay, maybe it's fine. But for my wife, who, for readers, has lived in a halfway house, probably not as bad as the one in IJ, an expensive one, but she's not going to believe it. And every halfway house section is going to be terrible for her if it's not real, right?
Right.
And so I think it bleeds into fiction. Like, to your point, I agree with your point, but I think it even extends a little bit into fiction, where if you want to include a part where the person goes to a Baptist church and you've never been to a Baptist church, you're going to be, any Baptist is going to be like, that's not what we do, and it's going to immediately be boring.
No, I agree. That's why I cemented it with more like sci-fi or fantasy. But fiction, like Infinite Jest, is rooted in the real world almost. So in that case, there's definitely stuff that you have to do. But I'm talking about like hardcore, like nonfiction. You need to know what you're talking about,
or fantasy, or
you really need to know what you're talking about when you're writing like very hard non-fiction, because it's based in
realistic fiction, or historical fiction, right? People that write historical fiction really need to have their their research done, right?
Yeah.
If you're gonna write about the war and you don't know the generals' names and stuff, so
exactly.
Well, cool. Well, I think I'm tied up on that. If you want to add, or if you want to move on, that was good. I like that question.
No, I would say like, I think the other day you had mentioned, because I don't do this like whole idolatry thing with authors, or I try not to. I do it too much with music anyway. So with authors, I just try to like read their stuff and like try not to worship them too much. But you had mentioned that David Foster Wallace was like a junkie at some point, so that interests me, and I looked it up, and there's a lot of stories about David Foster Wallace doing crazy shit. There's not an autobiography, but a biography that somebody wrote of him that's pretty well researched, and I think it's called every love story is a ghost story, and I don't remember who wrote it. I haven't read the whole thing, but I've read like excerpts from it. And he was in and out of halfway houses. He had a lot of drug problems, like and alcohol problems. He was an alcoholic at one point, and he went to a halfway house, and I think it was AA. There's whole sections in Infinite Jest about like worshiping a god, and then him being like, I don't believe in God or whatever. But they're like just whatever god you believe in or whatever. That's what AA is.
The Don Gately portions. Yeah,
exactly.
And like I think that's what he did in the novel. I think there's element you asked or you said one time that you think it's highly like autobiographical. And I think he splits himself into all those different characters. I think he gives a little bit of himself. There's elements of him in Don. There's definitely or James Incandenza, right? The suicide, the jester,
and Hal.
Right? He's the one that's
Hal
alcoholic.
for sure.
Yeah, Hal, and all of them, the patrilineage of the tennis dynasty,
Yeah, exactly.
It's all right there. And I'm taken for that. Like what I'm reading and getting from it, I really love the book. It's really just about Metal Gear Solid, but reading a book like that, it kind of consumes you. Like if you want to finish it, so I've been reading it a lot. Because if I stop reading it, you'll be, you nodded, so you already agree. Yeah, if you get away from it, it's like, man, I don't want to jump in on page 600 again. But it took me 7 weeks to get to page 600. So like, so I'm thinking about it a lot. But I'm learning from it too. I think when I wanted to write, I think maybe that's a cool thing to do. It's like instead of making a character just like me, make a bunch of characters and try to split myself up, and really kind of make the characters like an experimentation on myself, maybe. I don't know. It's cool. I'm trying to learn from his style and just. I'm gonna start doing that with I'm gonna try to read more novels. I think I'm gonna do not another DFW. I'm tempted, but I think I want to do like Moby Dick or something like old and
I'm reading Cormac McCarthy's Blood Meridian right now, and I'm like 50% through it. I read yesterday. I read like 30% of the book because I read everything on my Kindle, so I can tell how much is done. I read like 30% of the book yesterday when I was not doing anything working, and that book is fucking nuts, and it's really good. It's like
I've got a copy. I need to read it. Go on.
No, I really like it. We won't get off on topic. I guess we can talk about that later. But
I love reading. I love that we're both reading a lot. I'm trying to get back into books, and I've got so many. And it's just so cool now we're writing and trying to. Yeah, we're gonna be so good. It's cool. Cool stuff.
I don't know about that. Tell me about the game. How are the controls?
Okay, the controls in this game.
And you can talk. I have to go to the bathroom, but my bathroom's right here, so keep talking.
Fine. Yeah. The controls. I'm looking at it now. They're mostly like they're playable. They're kind of ass. But once you get used to them, they're not bad. Like once you get used to like the triggers to pull up your little weapon wheel, you get tons of weapons. It's so much similar. Like Metal Gear for the MSX is essentially a very solid precursor to Metal Gear Solid and probably Metal Gear 2. Like you use a key card to open doors, and it opens up parts of the map that are recursive, that they loop back to earlier points in the game. There's this clear progression.
Kind of like Infinite Jest.
Yes, a lot like Infinite Jest. Yes, yeah, it is. It is like that. I can see that, and it's a lot like that feeling. That Dark Souls moment that I talked about with Metal Gear, right? Where you open a door. And then there you are. I've seen this door before, but I was on the other side of it, and now here I am. Right. You do get that because finally,
it's like a Metroid kind of thing too.
Metroid does it too, yeah. In Infinite Jest, in the middle, I think I'm actually 49% done. I think, and in the past couple hundred pages, around page 300 or so, 400, all of these like disjointed stories. I've been getting like the guy that was smoking weed and paranoid, and the guy that stuck the toothbrush up his ass, and like all these things. The lady that was in all of James Incandenza's movies versus the Madame Psychosis on the radio. Now, every chapter I know almost who everyone is because they're finally starting to meet and it's starting to click. Now I know when all those strange years, like okay, the Pins adult undergarment that's like 1 year ago. Currently is You're Glad. Yeah. And it's like, okay, now I know what's going on. And so now I'm playing with power, right? And that's Metal Gear Solid. It does it very similar to Metal Gear. It's like, okay, you're in control. the mistakes are still your fault. Just like, the O.J. Simpson trial from Metal Gear, right? It's still your fault when you make a mistake. I do think the trip to 3D, I do think the controls suffered, but I mean, it's the first one, right?
Right.
And I think he did pretty darn well. There's no part that's not playable. Trying to think. The final boss was really annoying, there was some stuff towards the end that I didn't like. But some of that could have been user error. A lot of the bosses, I don't know, some of them, Psycho Mantis, once I figured it out, it was really fun. And the Raven was really good, kind of tough. Once you figure him out, it's like, yeah, it's killer. Controls are good, gameplay was good. Story, cinematics, I mean, it's very, as we saw at the very, even right now, as I'm looking at it a couple minutes behind him, going through the air duct to see the vice president or whatever. Or the way he comes out of the
Decoy
water.
octopus.
The credits. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was saying decoy octopus is I think who's talking to right now, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, I forget about that because that's like you never really see, right?
He's like part of Liquid's gang, but you like never see him, or other than
that's
here.
Right.
Yeah.
Right here, but you never see the real one. Like I think he's disguised here. So
right.
Yeah,
what he looks like. What about the action, the gunplay? What about the action? Does it feel good?
Yeah. I mean, it feels good. Like? I mean, for a game from 1997, I mean, you pull out your gun, you get the silencer. The way you aim is pretty good. I mean, it you don't miss a lot. Like it corrects for like
it auto aims a little bit. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that works. It's totally fair. The way you throw the grenades and the chaff grenades, the sounds, the little click. I remember that when you touch the right trigger and the click of the weapon selector or the item selector was super smooth.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's in all the games. Like they knew that was a classic, so they kept that in every game. That's like a staple of every Metal Gear game after this one is like the little clicks and then the zoop 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 zoop. Going through the items on the left and right side of the screen with the triggers or whatever.
Well, so good. And then with like in Metal Gear for MSX, like you get all these key cards and they're a separate item, and you have to go into the menu and pick key card for. So not only does this one let you do it without going to a separate menu, you can literally be running around changing your weapons or your items, and at the same time, I just totally lost myself. The key card. The key card's updates, right? So you only have one key card, and when you update it, now it's key card 2, and that part is totally soft. Additionally, there are other cool things too that they added to. For example, in Metal Gear for MSX, you could hop in the back of a truck, and it would take you somewhere else.
Right.
I didn't figure this out on my own. I figured this out. I read it somewhere in an article or review or something when I was writing. But if you get in a truck in Metal Gear Solid, it doesn't take you anywhere. But if you get in a truck and put a box on, it will take you somewhere. And where it takes you is based on which cardboard box you have. You probably already know that, and a lot of fans probably know that. But that was really cool. You get 3 cardboard boxes. I remember thinking, why do I have 3 types? They're all exactly the same. None of them do anything different. But then that's so cool. Like if you put cardboard box B on, it'll take you wherever cardboard B is supposed to go. So little attentions to detail like that. I mean, the Psycho Mantis fight, the little elevations and like the meta or like the extra gameplay or interactions that it added. It's Kojima. It reminds me of us a little bit. The way he approaches games is kind of the way we approach writing about games. Like, how do I connect myself to this, and how do I get the player to connect themselves? How do I connect myself to the player using this game as an intermediary?
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like like meta or postmodern in that kind of way, where he's trying to transcend the medium a little bit and reach out to the player directly, but he's also trying to like revolutionize the genre or the medium as well. But because this goes into my second question, which is many people describe this game as the first like cinematic computer game. Do you like agree or disagree with that, and why?
I agree that it is cinematic. I don't know if it's the first cinematic just because maybe my video games knowledge,
Right, yeah.
I'm sure there's a Gary, right? That would be like
actually, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But is it fair to say that it's an early example of really strong cinematography in video games? It seems like. I mean, even I'm looking at the launch octopus there, the decoy octopus, and I don't know, just taking camera angles into effect. Like,
Yeah, exactly. I think it's interesting because like people will nitpick, like Gary's will nitpick about what was the first thing. I don't think the first thing is really a relevant question unless you're doing historical deep dive on something. I think when somebody says this is like the first cinematic computer game, what they actually mean, and what I mean by the question is like this put cinematic computer games on the map by actually doing it fairly well to the point where a lot of people actually enjoyed it and people started copying it later on, which I think this game does do that. Now, to be Gary for a moment, there are games before this, like for the Sega Genesis CD or the 32X that are just like those video games. You know what I'm talking about? Where you like point and click, like Phantasmagoria or whatever, which was on PC, which is just like scenes of somebody walking around and telling you, almost like a little bit like an adventure game. There's a lot of games like that. Night Watch, I think, is one of those where you like use different cameras and look around a house, and there's like a murderer trying to kill somebody or whatever.
Yeah.
So they did exist before this for sure, and there's probably earlier examples even before that. Yeah. But I think this put cinematics.
I think it does, and I think it what it does that's different than games like Phantasmagoria is like this game. I think where it garners the title of cinema, if it does, is in its lengthy cutscenes. Like without overthinking it.
Right.
I mean, it will show you a movie, right? I don't know how many minutes of cutscenes are in this game, but it's a lot. Not as bad as like MGS4 or something like that, but it's a lot in this game, and it demands that of you. Like to enjoy Metal Gear, like the gameplay is really good. Like time period, all things considered, it's good, but it's got to be something else to like get you to sit through these cutscenes. Like the gameplay is better with the cutscenes. I think without the cutscenes, the game's kind of boring. Maybe you're not boring, but I don't know. You're missing a critical element. I feel like if you don't know the story, it kind of just seems like you're missing something. Without the story, it looks like you're just playing like SOCOM or something, right? SOCOM, U.S. Navy SEALs. And then all of a sudden you skip through the Psycho Mantis and you're like, why is the Navy SEAL floating?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. I think that's a good observation. I think this game doesn't have enough like I haven't played the original in a very long time, and the last time I played this was the remake for GameCube, which a lot of people don't like. I think it's fine, other than a few artistic choices that the guy who remade it happened to add into the game. But to me, I don't remember this game having that much gameplay. Like when I think of Metal Gear Solid, I want tactical espionage action. And Metal Gear Solid 2, I think, provides that. There's a lot of going around the big shell and like sneaking around, and there's like almost little sneak puzzles, like this guy goes this way, this guy goes this way, this guy goes this way. That's all over the place in Metal Gear Solid 2, and I don't remember that. Like I remember it happening sometimes in Metal Gear Solid 1, but I don't remember happening enough.
It's probably not. You're right. It's not all over the place. But it is there. It's there. I think the intro, like what you showed in your
intro,
the image.
I remember that specifically about being an example for sure.
It's got the big spotlight, that you can kind of go certain ways around. There is a couple other yards like that, I think. There is the area right before Psycho Mantis. I remember there's like a bathroom that you got to wait for a guard to go out, and it makes its circular rounds. So those elements are there, but by and large, they can also be. Well, it probably depends on the difficulty you're playing, but a lot of times you can just run around shooting folks, and there's no real penalty.
That's true. That's true.
I did that a lot sometimes.
Yeah. So the next question is kind of like a meme question, but do you think Metal Gear Solid makes smoking cigarettes look cool? And if so, do you think that's harmful to society?
Yeah. Yeah. It makes smoking cigarettes look hella cool. Hella cool, man.
The thing I remember about like this game is when Snake, there's a certain part at the beginning of the game, I think, when you first enter Shadow Moses or whatever, where there's a lot of those tripwires, laser tripwires. You remember that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And to see them, you have to smoke the cigarette, and then it makes the smoke, and you can see them, and then you can avoid them or whatever. I like how it...
And that's cool.
That is cool, yeah. I like how it incorporates the cancerous cigarette.
And that's one of the harder things. To
help save Snake instead of kill him.
Right. There's one part with those beams where they're like going up and down, And because of the camera angle, I remember I really didn't like it. I didn't get caught by him, so I guess it's fine. The gameplay was fine, but I remember being very nervous. I was like, man, I cannot tell, like, because you can't use the camera really in this game. I think you can go first person sometimes, or all the time, I think, or
I
you
don't
can
think
look
you
around in
can.
the first person.
Yeah, you can look
I don't think
around
you
the
can
first
walk.
person.
You can
Yeah.
look around. You can't walk around in FPS, but you can you can look. So there's some parts like that. But yeah, the cigarettes, and it also it's not just that either. I think it will won't it steady your aim?
Yeah, well, yeah, it does that in the other games too. Where like if you
Yeah,
smoke, like if you're using a sniper rifle, for example, in the other games, in
yeah,
this game too, I think. But with the sniper rifle, it'll steady your aim for sure. Yeah,
yeah. And it does take away a little bit of your health. I can't remember if it does in this game or not. I think it does.
it
I think it
does.
does
Yeah,
in MG1 too. I think it takes away your health. But it's
yeah,
cool, man. It's cool. And
yeah.
yes, it's
Like in
bad for
real
society.
life, if you
You should
imagine
not
like,
make smoking look cool.
yeah, I guess
In
so.
real
I
life,
don't really
what?
care.
Go on in real life.
I would think it'd be interesting in real life, if like you started smoking a cigarette and you had this little mental health bar, and then when you were done smoking the cigarette, it just went back up. You just ate like some food and it went back up. That'd be nice.
That would be nice. It would allow me to go back smoking if I could do that. Dang,
Not
is
me.
that
I don't care about smoking. I don't care about the health impacts of things that I do usually. I care about the mental impacts of things. There's yeah, this is a lot of people here. The cool thing about this game is that they mention. I don't think they don't hone in on this until Metal Gear Solid 2, but they mention this Solid as Snake in this game several times, and you don't even know it. Because Solid as
yeah?
Snake is the
He's the
president,
president.
George
Yeah.
Sears, yeah, and I don't think they ever mentioned that until like
Mm-mm.
Metal Gear Solid 2.
Yep.
So that's a cool little thing that it, evolves into later on. All right, so essay time. Let's go over the essay, or questions from the essay. The first question that I have about this essay is that this essay is about Metal Gear Solid, so why does it have Dragon Quest in the title? The hell is that about?
Great question. So, several reasons. Okay, so you wrote an essay about Dragon Quest monsters, and it was one of my favorites on the website, and it was very inspirational to me. And I liked about it. The reason I call it Return to Dragon Quest Monsters was several reasons. One, I thought I was kind of taking up another fight in that same vein, right? Not the same fight, but like, okay, animal rights advocacy, like human hypocrisy, right? The way we treat animals versus the way we treat ourselves. Also, I wanted to like create better. The idea was to create better like community on our site as well. I thought maybe by you writing one called Kill All Monsters and me saying, okay, return, Dragon Quest Monsters, like, okay, they're both on the same page about something, and so yeah, that was why I thought thematically, I thought it was not so different. I thought if there was a book about video games and animal rights, I thought both these essays would fit. Um, and I wanted to really also kind of my brain's slipping for the word, but basically like show some respect to the Kill All Monsters essay because I did like that one a lot. So that's why I did that.
Cool. The beginning of your essay, um, you go into a very long-winded, paragraph-long explanation of how you started looking into infanticide on Wikipedia. So how does infanticide relate to Metal Gear Solid at all?
Okay, so now I'm remembering some stuff. Now I remember I told you I was trying to wonder before Pitbulls, what I thought the essay was going to be about. So you probably remember this. Like the first or second night I'm playing it, and there was the part where what is his name? I'm such a fraud. What's the master Miller? Is it Master
Oh yeah,
Miller? Is his name?
Kazuhiro Miller or whatever.
Yeah. So Master Miller, he talks about the genome project of the mice, and so my brain,
Right.
luckily, I was paying attention during that part, and I'm like, okay, that sounds like the plot of the game, kind of. So
Right.
that's probably thematically relevant. And so yeah, so I wrote that down. So I was thinking about infanticide, right? Killing your own children, and that's so interesting. And so in the natural world, that does happen,
It does.
and then I thought about, okay, Big Boss and Solid Snake and Liquid Snake are in a way his children, and they're trying to kill each other. And then when I was reading about, and I go into it in the essay, I talk about how rats, like they'll even kill their brothers and sisters, right?
Mhm.
Especially if this is one of the more like things that I lucked
None of
out,
this
right?
is infanticide though. So.
Well, yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. So infanticide is killing it, but
Yeah, I see where I see your
I mean,
thought
as killing your
process. Yeah.
children, right? Killing your children. It doesn't
Right.
necessarily mean killing your babies. That's probably the more strict definition of infanticide. But I'm thinking about
No,
killing,
no,
just
no.
killing your children.
Sorry. I was saying like Snake and Liquid trying to kill each other is not infanticide, and then
It's not.
killing your brother is not infanticide either. There's probably a different word for that.
That's
I was just
fratricide.
being a Gary. Sorry.
No,
Yeah,
I get
you're
it,
right.
Gary. That's fine.
Fratricide.
But no, but I should clarify. So if I clarify, I will say so when you the Wikipedia article is called infanticide in rodents, I think, and in that article they do mention the brother sister because when it happens in rodents, typically it's still kind of technically infanticide because it's a baby mouse being killed by another baby mouse.
Oh, okay. That makes
But the
sense.
whole idea is just about family murder, right? And family murder related to the children, and so it really one of my favorite parts of it was that the rodents that kill their brothers, it happens when you take like a brother away when he's young, and then you introduce him back,
Yeah,
right?
that makes
And
sense.
that's the same thing that happened to Liquid in Solid. I can't remember exactly, but Liquid was separated from Solid, and Liquid was raised. That's why he's got that like kind of posh accent or whatever, right? He was raised, I think, in higher society. I might be wrong on that, but he was raised. He definitely was raised differently than Solid Snake. And so when they're forced to reconvene, they're trying to kill each other. And I don't know if
Right.
that point was super strong, but I thought it was interesting. So that's how I got to the infanticide in rodents. And that back to what I was reading. I wasn't reading of Mice and Men, but it's a good book, and it was a great title, of that chapter. There's mice in it. There's men in it.
Yeah, that's a good book. I think it's a short book too. I read that in high school, and I watched the movie in high school as too.
Yeah,
It's a good
it's a good
book.
book.
So the
And
next question
it's
is,
got murder at the end, right? They kill the innocent at the end, right, Lenny? Looking at the rabbits. So there's some more
yeah,
animal metaphors in there, and
yeah, I'd have to read it again, but I remember. I mean, that's the big twist. I mean, you just ruined it for everybody that his friend kills
it's
Lenny, his
100
best
years
friend.
old. It's 100-year-old novel. If you haven't read a 90-page 100-year-old novel, I'm sorry. To the one person that's
Yeah,
watching.
you could read it in a day, and you should if you're interested in
Good.
that kind of stuff. Liquid posits that male mice kill babies that are not their own to preserve their own genetic identities, right? And you just mentioned that. Well, Kazuhisa Miller mentions it, right? Right.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna be. Do you think this is true that they do it to preserve their own genetic identities?
I think the ones. Oh, that's complicated. In mice, I don't know. In mice, I don't think there's enough like cognitively going on. Or what it is it's some kind of like it explains
Biological
the way it is.
urge.
Right. It's they're not really thinking about it as in terms like the rat isn't like I've got to preserve my integrity,
You gotta
but
kill
there's some
this.
kind of
Yeah.
underlying mechanism that when those rats are reintroduced, like okay, it's not my kid, and it's a threat to my continued survival. And I think that's what Big Boss realizes about, or did I guess before he died. And I'm probably missing a lot because I don't know the whole story of Metal Gear, so I'm probably gonna say a lot of ignorant shit. Um, but
Right. You've only played Metal Gear for MSX and then Metal Gear 1.
Right, and Metal Gear Solid 4, but like 10 years
Mhm.
ago, and I had no context for it, so it was very confusing.
Yeah.
So like,
That game's insane. They're
uh,
actually re-releasing that game for the first time ever. It might already be out. Maybe I don't know. It might be in
oh
the
yeah,
collection
yeah,
or something.
no, it's not in the collection. I don't think it's gonna be in the net. I think
It's the
they're
second
releasing
part.
like
Yeah.
part 2 or something. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Yeah.
No,
But
it's
you said
okay.
that. Yeah, you said that the genetic thing. They don't think about it, and then you mentioned like maybe it might be a biological like urge. My question then would be: don't you think it's counterproductive for any sort of species of creature to have an urge to kill babies of their own species? Don't you think that's a little counterproductive biologically?
It's counterproductive, but I wonder if it's if it is the reality, then I think it is the reality because it is of greater benefit if you're hardwired to like preserve yourself, then that's
Mm-hmm.
of greater benefit somehow. Even though it
Yeah,
seems like a
maybe.
paradox, right? Like maybe having that drive, like yeah,
Yeah,
maybe some babies get stomped on in the way, right? But like having that drive, like preserves like the species as a whole. I don't know. That's
yeah.
a great question. It is
Alter-
counterintuitive.
Alternatively, my theory on this is that I don't think things in nature need to be productive per se. And if we go by the evolutionary model of whatever our evolutionary model is now, or, Darwin and how much has been refined, like things, a lot of times evolutionary quirks are beneficial and they persist because they're beneficial, right? A lot of the times.
Right.
It's not like nature is saying, I'm going to make this beneficial mutation. People mutate all the time.
Right.
Babies have different mutations. The ones that are beneficial usually last, longer than the ones that don't, and then they persist. But this one where you're like killing other people's babies, it's not. I don't think it's necessarily beneficial to anybody, but it's also not like detrimental. And it could probably come along with other things, like you said, the urge to self, keep yourself alive or whatever. And it's just kind of tacked onto that. As just an unfortunate byproduct of
because the one that's good at killing babies, right? The one that's good, the rat that's really good at killing babies is probably also really good at making babies and protecting his own babies, the ones that he doesn't lose track of.
Maybe.
Maybe. It just there must be, but yeah, you're right. It's not evolution. Sometimes we think, okay, it's just almost like it has agency, right? Like, oh, it's just like
right. Evolution doesn't have agency, right? Yeah. Exactly.
No, it just takes a long time because it makes a lot of fucking mistakes. But in doing a billion mistakes, you get a few things that work.
Right. So think about this. Like, let's pretend like the mice that evolutionarily, the mice that's like very aggressive lives longer and has more babies. But alongside this aggressive, behavior comes like the unfortunate quirk that maybe, it'll kill babies that aren't its own, But overall, the aggressiveness keeps it alive longer and helps it reproduce longer, whereas the ones that are less aggressive may be less inclined to kill other mice babies. But they also aren't going to stay around as long either because they're not as aggressive and they're not fighting as strongly for the life, right? So, maybe something like that. I don't know. I'm rambling.
And the aggressive rat has also had a bunch of babies that inherited his aggressiveness, his aggression. And so then that becomes a species, right? The other gene line died out because it was weaker, right? I mean, this is good because it really leads us into the
circular, right?
The article, right?
It's circular because you're making more babies that are aggressive, and then those babies are going to go on to kill the weaker babies, and et cetera, et cetera. It's the Ouroboros, I think. It's just cyclical.
Well, in a way, evolution is almost like a disinterested eugenicist, right? It's almost like nature is a eugenicist. It's its own really passive.
It's the survival of the fittest, right? And then that's how it does it.
That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Cool. That was a good question. Yeah, that was really good.
I skipped a question. So you wrote that Liquid has his ulterior motives, which conveniently for Solid involve keeping him alive and successful for the time being. My question about this is story related. I think I don't remember very well, but I think Liquid has motives to keep Snake alive that are legitimate. But a lot of villains in media and stuff keep the villain alive or keep the hero alive for no real reason other than facilitating cool story drama.
Right.
It seems kind of stupid. Like a James Bond villain might keep James Bond alive above a shark tank and then slowly lower him down or something like that. Nobody would do that in real life. They would just shoot James Bond in the head.
Right.
Do you think that's appropriate here, or does Liquid legit have a good reason for helping him get all the way through Shadow Moses to himself, and then
He does. It took me a minute. I was really thinking hard because oh shit, I'm gonna look like an idiot. I don't remember anything about this game. It's coming back. So. You've got to they want to launch a nuclear attack. They're trying to get Big Boss's remains, is what they're trying to do. And, they're doing it through,
That it's in Metal Gear Solid 4, too, I think, that comes back up, right? Remember that?
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's been so long, so I don't remember. But they want Big Boss's remains. The United Nations or some fucking entity has Big Boss's remains. And they're trying to do it by threatening to launch nuclear weapons with Metal Gear Rex. And... to do that, they've got to have some codes and some key cards, and the only person that they think that can do this is Solid Snake. That's my distillation of the plot. I'm sure there's a couple things I'm missing, but that's why he wants Snake alive, because he thinks Snake is the only one that can help them get the ability to actually launch the nuclear weapons from Metal Gear Rex.
Gotcha.
And so, I guess he does need to keep him alive. but really, maybe that's a point in Kojima's playbook. Maybe that's a reason to applaud him. Is that maybe he realized that okay, that's a stereotype to just keep the good guy alive for no reason. So maybe I need to tackle that question, or maybe it was a
Yeah.
coincidence.
And there's ways to do it in a way where you don't necessarily need to keep the hero alive, or the villain doesn't need to keep the hero alive for a legitimate, like, plot related reason, other than I want to fight the villain. I want to fight the hero because I'm jealous of him, or
Right.
because there's some other drama that is involved. Which I think that's part of it here too. Is like Liquid is extremely jealous of Snake throughout the game. I think that's one of his main motivators is that he like hates Snake and he thinks he's inferior, or he thinks he is superior at the beginning, and it turns out he's not, or something. I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, he thinks Snake is better. He's like, Snake is the better clone. They gave me all the shit genes, and my life sucks, and I hate you. And
that's a cool twist because that's a cool twist because it turns out that I think if I remember correctly, and this is a spoiler, Liquid is the one with the quote unquote superior genes.
Yeah,
at the end,
I talk about it. I think a little bit.
Yeah, and that's a cool twist at the end because it tells you that like, what the fuck are superior to? Like, what does that mean?
Well, it calls into question what we just talked about, right? The whole idea of the mouse trying to fix the mice trying to fix their genes by being fucking sadistic, like, that's all a point of view, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, and then with the game, with Solid Snake succeeding, it hammers that point even home, like even further, right? Not only was Liquid wrong that superiority at all, he was wrong, he is superior, but his superiority is ultimately meaningless because he fails, right? So, like, even with what he thinks is superior, it actually isn't. So he's right and not right at the same time. Snake is superior. Solid is superior.
But, like, how, though? I don't remember that from the story. Like, how is he superior? Do they ever explain that? Like, what is superior about the quote-unquote superior genes?
I don't think the story explains it. I think I said it. Snake has gameness. I don't know if he was bred for it, but Snake has gameness. Snake
Liquid does
give
too,
up.
though.
That's fair. Yeah, I haven't seen as much of Liquid's gameness in this one. Not as much.
Oh, okay.
But Liquid fell for the maybe he just fell for it, right? They told him that he had the recessive genes, and maybe it was that self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like,
it's probably it.
I don't know. We talk about IQ numbers and shit, right? Someone with an IQ higher than mine's got to be smarter than me, but that's not the case. Maybe I write something better, or figure out something better. What's better is just a point of view.
Or like Andy Warhol, who supposedly had like a 70 IQ, but he became one of the most popular artists and went on to popularize what we call pop art, when really he was just putting cans on a canvas and laughing about it and acting quote unquote stupid on purpose.
But he succeeded in ways that maybe other people couldn't, and that's what Snake succeeds in ways that maybe Liquid can't, because Snake isn't a self-defeater. Liquid walks around this game with this idea that he's the inferior brother, and I think that's what limits him. Just this mental handicap he places on himself because of other people. Snake never does that. Snake says, "Yes, sir. You want me to go take care of this by myself? Give me a pack of cigarettes in a cardboard box, and I'm there."
Mm-hmm. And Liquid doesn't have the doubt.
Right, no doubt at all.
But that's unfortunate, though. I think that's I think that's an unrealistic portrayal of the hero. I think Snake does have some doubts, but he doesn't have enough, and I think he's not a realistic portrayal of a hero because of that. Like, Liquid had a lot of doubts and obviously thought he was inferior, but I think a lot of people feel that way. And a lot of people are very successful and they still feel that way. And a lot of people are driven by feeling inferior to other things, and it makes them competitive and it makes them want to do better. And I think that drives people a lot. I don't think we ever really get people like Snake in real life. We might once in a while, like when the stars align, but like we never get somebody who has this, I think, ultimate, real, internal confidence about everything they do that Snake has. Yeah. And maybe that makes him superior, but I would argue that is supernatural.
Yeah. Well, I think he is maybe, I don't want to say inferior like to Liquid, but I think he is like Snake Solid. Occupies like this negative space for me because my essay like likens him to the pit bull, right? Like he's a good guy. There's nothing wrong with a pit bull terrier, right? Like they're nice dogs, like they're dogs, like they're innocent. But like there's an element of Solid Snake where like he will, because of how he is, he will do whatever. I mean, he caused a lot of problems. This is the second game I've played where he is actually the bad guy for most of the game, where he's being manipulated into doing the wrong thing. because he's so aggressive and like so confident and will just do this, and he will not let go of a task until he's done.
If anything, he's a little
So
too trusting of people, and that's one of his problems. Like early on, is like he just
yeah,
trusts. He just trusts what he's being told. Almost, he doesn't
yeah.
really think critically about such like some things in the game. But he does have a
Can
lot
we
of
take? I'm gonna
gameness.
take pause on games. I gotta go grab another beer, and I'm gonna take a quick 3 minute leisure break. You know what that means?
Yeah, that's fine. I'll keep going. I have things to say about
Yeah,
this, so you can
yeah. And
go.
then add about that, and then remember, quick. It'll take. I'm gonna try to do less than 3 minutes,
Yeah,
maybe two. Go back.
yeah. I think like Solid Snake is extremely supernatural in his portrayal of being just ultimately confident and okay with killing people. I think this is a good scene right here where he's talking to Meryl. Meryl, I think, had this opportunity to shoot somebody like a soldier in real life, and it's so interesting that this comes up right now. It's almost serendipitous, but because I was watching this earlier, Snake is talking to Meryl, and Meryl is like, "I want to come with you on your next hunt or whatever, your next mission." And Snake tells her, "No, I want you to stay behind and hide." She's like, "Why? I can do it." But he brings up the fact that you couldn't even shoot the soldier like directly, and she says, "Well, I did it in training, I did it in VR, but there was something that made me hesitate in real life when I had my gun trained on him and was about to pull the trigger." And Snake goes into this whole thing about how the first time is the hardest time, and it just gets. He says, unfortunately, it gets easier to kill people over the more you do it, which is an interesting thing to say for him. But obviously, he had to kill somebody initially at some point, which I don't think we ever see. Even in the MSX games, I think he's already kind of like a seasoned soldier at that point. Or maybe not, I haven't played those in a very long time. But I think he's killed people before, so we never really see his development. Snake has always been sort of this supernatural killing machine from his first appearance in Metal Gear. And I don't know if he's ever really questioned his actions, at least up until this point. I think in Metal Gear Solid 2, he goes on to question his actions a little bit. He shows up as Pliskin and don't know he's Snake. In Metal Gear Solid 2, he's trying to right the wrongs, I think, that he's done up to this point, maybe. I'd have to play this whole series again. It's been such a long time since I played these games. But yeah, I think that's interesting. I really like the Liquid's portrayal in Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, as well, which is not the subject of this video, but I liked his childish, his child portrayal. And his shirt that said Game Over on the back was very cool. Let's see. Metal Gear Solid 5. Game Over. I think his name is Eli in that game. Oh, never be game over. It's such a Hideo Kojima thing to put on the back of a jacket. That's something. I mean, if somebody showed me a screenshot of just this without any context, I would probably guess, if they asked me, who's the director of this game, I'd probably guess Hideo Kojima. If not the first director, it'd probably be like the second guess. He has all these like little slogans that he puts on things. I can't think of it right now. I swear he does. I promise. Just trust me on this. He definitely does. Never be game over. Did I miss any questions? Next question that I have is killing babies for genetics. Which we'll ask. Hello.
Hey, I heard you say something about your next question.
My next question is killing babies. We're going to circle back to the infanticide bit. So killing babies for genetics is very eugenics, right? It's like a natural selection eugenics almost. Which you get into chapter 2 of your essay. And I read the essay. I thought it was good. Do you agree with any type of eugenics programs?
Huh.
Like
Okay,
carried
so I
out
don't
in
agree
real
with
life?
anything that's been none that's been happening. Probably. Although there's arguments for like maybe medicine research or something maybe that I don't know about. Maybe I could be cornered into. But any like
Let's
Nazi
circle back. Hold
programs
on. Let's
or
circle back and define eugenics first of all. So eugenics, let's do the actual definition.
Yeah.
Define eugenics. The study of how to arrange reproduction within a human population. I'm going to remove human from this.
But see, they do that. That's right, but that's relevant. I mean, remove it because that's relevant to the point, right? That we say, okay, only for humans is this no-no.
I'm going to remove
anything
this.
Else we can.
Yeah, I'm going to remove this from the definition. So, the study of how to arrange reproduction within a population to increase the occurrence of heritable characteristics regarded as "quote unquote" desirable. So, in this essay, you go through how breeding dogs is eugenics, which I would agree with you. If you did that to humans, everybody would instantly call that eugenics, right? So now that we've kind of defined what eugenics is, do you agree with any type of eugenics? Not just what has happened in real life, like Nazis killing all the Jews, or any sort of other weird human programs, but do you agree with any type of eugenics, like hypothetically?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Because really, if I don't want to be like, okay, being me or a human being with thoughts, it's like, no, because I'm flawed and I would be eugenics out, right? I would not make the cut. So, like, the bias is like, no, don't do that because of people like me that suck. But, I mean, yeah, right? I think everyone's answer should be yeah, right? Everyone, if they think they're a good person, they should say yes. Because, like, I think I know what's good and bad about people. I mean, I'm smart enough to know that my brain is flawed, right? Like, that's why I got that self-awareness that maybe some people don't know. So, like, I shouldn't really be allowed to do this. But, of course, I think, yeah, if I could breed out wisdom teeth, right, to save people on orthodontics bills, like, that's probably a good thing to do, right?
Yeah.
If I could breed out, anger or laziness or retardation, mental retardation, if you could get rid of that shit by controlling how people fuck, like, probably. But I'm not going to like it. Retarded people aren't going to like it. Angry people aren't going to like it because they don't get to exist. And they're told that they're lesser than. And that hurts people's feelings.
So I would say I agree with you somewhat. I agree that it seems ideal to want to breed out things like mental retardation or Down syndrome or any sort of genetic disorder or mutation that is harmful to the human that is born or the animal of any sort. Because you wouldn't want to be born with no legs or your arm is grafted into your face and your whole life is terrible, but your mom didn't want to abort you because I love you, quote unquote. If we lived in a world where a doctor could tell a woman that, or a family that, hey, your son is going to be like fucked, like totally fucked, and the family was still like, no, we want to have him. At that point, there's some sort of moral questions that come up at that point, because at that point you're allowing the birth of a creature that is going to have a miserable life. And in this situation, it is going to have a miserable life. That's hypothetical, right? Yeah. So if you knew and you had foreknowledge that your son or your daughter was going to have a miserable life because of some genetic condition, and you could have stopped that during, you could have aborted the fetus or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like, what are the morals there? Like, what is the ethics of that? Yeah. I think that's an interesting thing to think about, and I think it's an uncomfortable thing for a lot of people to think about as well.
Well, it gets into I just interject a little bit. While I say that I can see some use in eugenics programs, I think in practice, really it comes in a Watchmen type scenario. Like, who watches the Watchmen? It's okay, I'm fine with my own personal eugenics program if I get to pick and choose. But when the other gets to pick and choose, that is when we get into dangerous territory, because we're not all similar. We all have different values, so we're all gonna. We kind of see it, though. Do we not see? I might be too stoned for this, but I feel like, don't we see? We see sort of a cultural eugenics, executed through politics.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, we see a lot of that. I think there's geographical eugenics, and then there's political eugenics. There's cultural eugenics for sure.
There's personal eugenics,
but these things play out almost These things play out almost societally subconsciously. almost like
pruning the bad. It
collectively.
just makes sense, right? Like the shit we don't like, we get rid of. And I do this on my plate, right? If I don't like olives on my pizza, I pick it off, right? Or I don't order that kind of pizza.
I think the
And that
problem
works for
comes
me.
in when like somebody exists. I think this is the main issue when somebody thinks of eugenics. Like the border, like the surface level take is that eugenics is when I take a bunch of people I don't like and kill them. But there's more to eugenics than that, right? So eugenics, you could prevent birth, like we're talking about. Like we could say, like this group of people can't give birth anymore. That's a form of eugenics because eventually their race or whatever their line will die out, and that's eugenics. I'm more comfortable with that as a prescription to certain problems than obviously just killing people who are
Like
already
a
alive.
Holocaust. Yeah.
I don't value non-life, and there's no reason I see to value things that aren't alive. Like, otherwise, you're getting into weird territory of like you have to value all like weirdo potential. So if something's not alive, I don't value it. So
no, you're right.
But at that point, then you can make the argument like, well, you're encroaching on people's freedoms. Like, let's say my family, the government's like, you guys can't breed anymore because you guys have been known to, you have the genetics of somebody who's going to have a very high chance of having somebody with really bad and painful genetic deformities if you guys have children. And you can't breed anymore. And overall, that might be beneficial to society in the long run. But in the short term, I want to be able to have a fucking kid. Like, I want to start a family. So you're encroaching on my freedom just because there's a good chance I might make, like, a genetic demon baby. And I don't know if that's... Personally, I'm very villainous, so I wouldn't buy this argument from anybody other than my own self. But I would enact this probably on society if there's a good reason for it. Like, if I knew that, like, there's a subset of people who just, we could identify with genetics that everybody born from those people are going to have, arms coming out of their heads. Or that's a very extreme example, right?
Or giant mutant babies in the Northeast, right?
Giant mutant babies who will live for 3 years and then they'll be in pain their whole life and they'll die. I don't see why anyone would allow that if we could stop it.
Well, that's where we kind of get... I like this because this is where we get... I think we need to stop... Like really... This is where fascism kind of... It gets so complex, right?
Right.
Because, I think we're talking a kind of fascism that I dig, right? Because, those people that want to have those babies, fuck their freedom, right? They really, logically, they shouldn't get freedom. Like, it's not good. Like, your freedom doesn't trump your stupid fucking decisions to create a monstrosity that hates being born. But it creates a problem because we believe in freedom so much, so much that you should be able to make your fucking... thing that's like, kill me, please, right? That's like, I don't want to exist like this.
I would argue that it's extremely selfish. I would argue that it's selfish and all that.
Fuck those people, man. Like that, you're free to... Oh, you want to make a monstrosity? That's like saying I should be free to rape somebody, right? You're encroaching on others at a certain point, right? Not only on the monstrosity that you're creating, but on the... Okay, you go out one day, get hit by a car, and now somebody else has got to take care of that fucking freaking nature, right? All because you wanted to be free? The rest of us don't agree. Like, go in the woods and do that shit if you want to, right? But I don't like it because that seems like a borderline like because like it's fine when me and you say it and we agree, but when it's Donald Trump saying kind of a similar thing but with different objects or opinions, it's like no. And then we're back to the argument.
But I mean, you need to have a good reason for it. Like, and our situation is very niche and it's almost extremely hyperbolic. Like, there's no way right now to identify a group of people who are only going to give birth to demon-headed babies that live for 3 years and say the only words that they can say are, learn to say are "kill me, please." That's not something that exists right now or something that we would be able to do. So this is only an extreme hypothetical, right? People like Trump are like, I don't know. Right, this is complicated. This is getting into politics, but right-wing politics veer into eugenics more societally and culturally than they do outright saying you guys can't give birth. It's more like, let's take all the money from the black people and the black communities, and that's downstream. They will probably be very not well off at that point, and et cetera, et cetera. I don't know. I think encroaching on people's freedom. People value freedom a lot, especially in America, right? We very much so value freedom to the point where
Individual freedom, yeah.
yeah, to the point where like people will argue I should be able to like huff paint all day, and that's fine. Maybe you should be able to huff paint all day. I don't know. We just argue for
You shouldn't. No, you shouldn't. No. So if you're huffing paint, no, that's a waste of good fucking paint.
True.
Paint is for sterilization and for murals and for like the sides of buildings. It's not for you to huff. It's not for you to waste a sock that you fucking sprayed into and the lungs that you're inhaling it into. I don't think, because those people never just huff paint, right? That's the problem. If they would just go huff paint by themselves somewhere, fine. But they're stealing the paint from the stores, right? They're stealing money from their family to get the paint. They're not keeping any jobs. They're not contributing to the society that they're stealing from. And ultimately, the society that we enjoy will crumble if we allow this to continue, is the argument that maybe, Charlie Kirk would make or something,
Right, yes.
But it's fine. It's a good one.
I would say it's a decent argument, yeah.
Yeah. I don't think he articulates it as well as I do. I haven't listened to him forever. Fuck that guy. But like,
yeah, fuck him. But I mean, if he's just arguing against paint huffing and he thinks that's bad and you probably shouldn't do that and that those people should seek help, I'm on board with Charlie Kirk with that take.
Yeah, like degeneracy exists, right? I think I would disagree with everything he thinks about degeneracy or any conservatives, right? But I do think degeneracy exists in society, right? Like, not really, because I'm postmodern or whatever the fuck I am, but like, but in the world that we inhabit and share, in the themes and the terms, the definitions that we have to agree to make this work, like degeneracy exists, and paint huffing is one of it, is part of it.
Yeah, exactly. Like that person on that. I don't remember what channel it is, but that like TLC channel where they just film people with terrible problems, and that guy is just huffing paint all day or whatever. He's doing duster, like he's like
or eating chalk or duster. Yeah, dusters.
Eating chalk and then doing duster, and he's got kids, and he's up in his room, and he's got like just 100 duster bottles around him, and it messes with his voice, so he sounds like a demon when he talks. Like, that's degenerate. That's degenerate, right? That's degenerate.
He's stealing the duster,
and he's got kids. He's neglecting them for duster.
And life could be lived better than that. And better is like subjective, but duster is never part of better.
But the problem with the duster's probably never part of better, especially when it's going inside of a human body. Duster's not any good. Maybe to clean a computer, but not otherwise. I think the problem comes in. It's like people will argue, and I could make this argument that, hey, I could do duster once in a while and not neglect my family because it makes me feel good. So what's the cutoff? Like, should we get rid of duster? Like, this is the weed argument. Somebody can ruin their wife smoking weed, or somebody like you could smoke weed sometimes, and their life isn't ruined, and they're still doing their societal duties. But there are people who use weed in a harmful way, and that's the main conservative argument for getting rid of weed, is that people will get addicted to weed and like stop doing anything, and they'll eat too much, and they'll neglect their family, and it's a gateway drug. And in some cases this is true, in a lot of cases it's not. So how do we address that? And we're kind of getting off topic, I think, but how do we address that? We
can rein it back, but
we get rid of duster completely and say, how do we do that? You can't do it. I think you have to allow some level of risk, unfortunately, in society, and there's nothing that we can do about that. Because we have to allow people to have the freedom to buy duster and maybe huff it.
No, absolutely, they have to be able to huff it. I don't know what the solution is. I don't think there's anything you and I can do. I think it's like we ostracize or cap those people, right? We either ignore them, like literally they talk to you and you don't respond, right? Like you literally look the other way or do this thing.
I know. Stay under the bridge.
Anytime, just right past. But I don't know, because sometimes the it's not like a perfectly. I mean, sometimes it happens, but usually it's not like a perfectly normal person with a good life, right? That's doing duster. It's usually someone that's been neglected or harmed. Yeah. Which all stem back to it. It's a real, and it's not even just like their parents' fault, right? If they're black, it could be a systemic problem, right? Or even white in different areas. It doesn't matter. Like, it could be if you're gay or if you're, I don't know, an amateur games reviewer,
Right.
any of that stuff you might be discriminated against, right? And
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of factors involved in it, yeah, for sure, that lead to addiction and lead to unhealthy lifestyle choices. Most people, I would argue, probably don't want to be addicted to Duster and have thousands of Duster bottles around their bed and room. I would argue that that's probably something that people don't want to do.
no, I don't want that.
Yeah, it just sort of
I,
happens.
I think okay, you fix it by. I think there's two ways. You either accept that you are a finite being, you're gonna die, and there's only so much change that can happen in 70, 80 years, and you promote like your own values until you die, or you speed run it with fascism. I think, right? That's the only
Yeah, you
two
speed run it with
ways, right?
fascism, and you try, yeah, to speed run it with
Yeah.
fascism, and that's
By
when we get
forcing
into,
people, right?
yeah, and that's when we get into like villains in most computer games and movies who don't think of themselves as villains. They just think of themselves as some sort of speedrunner, you know?
Right, I'm gonna run Thanos, right? He's like the world's got
Yeah, exactly. He's the ultimate
so I'm a speedrunner. Like,
but his solution's so dumb. Like he doesn't have
So bad,
any
yeah.
systematic way of choosing which people to die. He's just like like you're gonna end up the same
Yeah.
place.
Same shit. You just went back in time. Is all you did.
Exactly. Yeah, you just went back in time. Yeah. He's probably the
That was
worst
supposed to get him out.
speedrunner.
He's the worst. He sped run to that and then sped run to his demise. He was the first one that came to mind. But yeah, that's the thing. I think a lot of, at least good villains, right?
Yeah, they have that.
Ones that are interesting. They've got a motive that is moral or rooted in some kind of pain or
Moral
hurt,
philosophy,
right? Like maybe
yeah, that it tells them that like, hey, I'm doing this for a good reason.
it's a good reason.
You
Y'all are
don't think
bad.
so?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? That's not taking a side real quick. In Final Fantasy 13, and part of the crux of like the essay I'm trying to write is that the abandoned like demigod, because there's the demigods and the humans, and they've been abandoned by the maker, and the abandoned demigod wants to destroy everything. Right? He's like, F all of this. Right? I want the attention and everything. Hold on. What were we talking about like 3 steps ago?
I don't know,
What
but
you
we
were
should
saying?
get back to our questions about the actual essay, I think.
No, hold on. It was important. Hold on.
Some sort of demigods trying to kill everything. That's like,
Yeah.
I'm sympathetic
I
to
was
the
relating that back to
speedrunner.
what you said.
I'm sympathetic to speedrunners, but I'm also sympathetic to the villain who's like, I want to reset everything. Like, he's like, I'm also very sympathetic to that villain who's like, humanity is terrible. Humanity is fucking terrible. I want to kill all of you fuckers. Like, I'm very sympathetic to that as well. Like I said, I have like.
I remember now. I think it was the main bad guy in Final Fantasy 13. He's destroying everything to get God's attention, basically.
Oh, okay.
Right. And I saw that as a similar like parallel.
Gotcha.
But yeah, we are getting a little off base. If you want to rein it back in.
True.
Rein us back.
And just for the disclaimer, I don't want to kill everybody or whatever, and I'm not going to give a disclaimer. Actually, I do want to kill everybody. Fuck people. I will kill people, and I'm pro killing people. So let's move on from that. If you want to clip that or whatever, our 0 viewers, that's fine. To tie this back,
I'll stick my head in a microwave. I'll stuff a little aluminum. I'll drill a hole in the door, and stick my head inside and put aluminum foil around it and turn it on.
I won't do that. I'll make other people do that.
Other people do that.
Yeah. All right. So the next question. This question is kind of stupid, but like the cloning thing is kind of like eugenics because you're cloning specific life forms because you want to, clone those superior genes. Chapter 4 talks about Penny the Pitbull. Explain where this inspiration came to talk about Penny the Pitbull. And hard mode, you cannot mention David Foster Wallace or his short story Incarnations of Burning Children.
I feel like I should mention that. Can I mention that at the end?
I've already mentioned it.
People?
Yeah.
So I'll mention that at the end. But without that, because I had the idea for that. Or what struck me, this is a perfect part to talk about what made me want to write about the pit bulls, is I was late one morning, I think my son was at his grandparents' house, and my wife was at work, and I was laying in bed, and I was probably a little high, and I was like reading Reddit or something, and there was a link to like a subreddit I think called like Pitbull Hate or something really extreme.
Yeah, I've seen that subreddit.
And I was like, and I was reading on it, and like they're really extremists. I don't even think I really jive with them, but some of the stories were true stories, and I saw videos of some of this, right? And this stuff was really, really like visceral. Like there was like several news stories of like two babies, like a 3-year-old and like a 9-month-old being mauled by the family pit bull that was owned like since a baby, right? Like more of these stories were like the family pit bull and not like a random one.
Right.
And
Yeah.
there was a video I saw of like a pit bull attacking a horse, and like the horse won, but like the
That's
pit
good.
bull did not give up. It was gameness, right? Like the pit bull had to get put down because finally the horse just stomped. Like it was I could barely watch it. And then like I have my
Yeah, I wouldn't
son, and I'm
watch any
like,
of this stuff actually. I don't know what the hell
I
you're
mean,
watching.
I was kind of watching their fingers, but it really impressed upon me, and I was like, these dogs like they can snap and they will kill. And then I'm looking at my son or thinking about my son. And I'm like, imagine that. And so that was heavy with me. And then you showed me Incarnations of Burning Children when I was thinking about this
You
stuff.
put two and two
And
together.
then,
Yeah.
and I was like, I just to practice my writing ability too. I think I would like to try to write that chapter again. I wrote it, I think, twice or 3 times, and it was getting better. But I definitely think but the idea that you could be sitting there with two things that you love, and then watch one of them like somehow like
Well,
just
in your
kill like
story,
the
they
other one.
didn't
Like
watch it. They like that was already done. They were not paying attention, right? It's almost kind of like Incarnations of Burned Children, where they weren't
right,
paying
where they were
attention.
just But for a second, something that kind of I don't know, maybe you're perfect, but I'm not perfect all the time. Like sometimes
No.
for a split second, I especially now that he's getting bigger, right? Like you're still pretty little, but like now that Thorny's getting bigger, it's like not long, but I'll go if I have to. You know my house, right? So if he's watching TV, if I need to go run back here and grab a book real quick, what's that? 45 seconds? I'll do that. But
Yeah.
that's long enough for a pit bull to latch on, right? And
Yeah.
like, I don't
It
have a
is.
pit bull, but it could happen to any. That's long enough for him to grab a pot. Like that's Incarnations of Burned Children, and that's stuff that you. Wow, what would that feel like? I remember laying there thinking, what would that feel like?
Yeah, it would be
And I just thought
awful,
a
and
lot.
I think Incarnations of Burned Children captures that feeling extremely well. Um, but you know the character that gets his genitals burned off in that the baby comes back as a
Mhm.
character in Pale King, like he's one of the characters in that book.
I think I've read like
Like when
that
he's
something about it. Or you
older,
told me that maybe.
he's older and he's got deformed genitals, and I think he's some sort of a like fetish object to women online or something like that, which is interesting. I think I read a lot of that. I didn't finish it. It's
It's
so
long,
much.
right? That's a big one too, right?
He's yeah, the maximalism or whatever. It's just so much.
It's insane. IJ is like I'm just doing it. It is enjoyable. Luckily, IJ is super enjoyable, but like
Yeah.
God, you don't have to. Sometimes it takes me an hour and a half to read like 15 pages of this goddamn book. Like, and I do love it, but it's like, yeah, maximalism. And that Pale King wasn't even finished, right? Wasn't it
No,
unfinished?
it
It
wasn't
was.
finished. So, can you explain to the audience how pit bulls are relevant to eugenics?
Yes. So
Short.
pit bulls are in this picture that's on the screen, right? All
Mhm.
dogs come from the gray wolf. Every single dog that exists. From the Chihuahua that I have, the Labrador slash German Shepherd that I had, I think both mentioned in the article. They're all descendants of the gray wolf, right? And so we pick what we like. And I think I mentioned like dog shows,
Mhm.
and there's police dogs. There's all different ways we employ like dogs, and they're great. I have a dog. He's not in here with me right now, but he's 2 rooms away. They're
Biting
great.
your
But
child, yeah.
but
Killing
the
your
pit bull,
child.
like okay, like
You
when
don't
my
even.
baby was born, I would not leave my Chihuahua. My Chihuahua could have killed my baby. I don't think
Yeah.
he really would have. He doesn't really have gameness, but he could have bit my baby pretty hard.
Yeah, you good.
And he's a little unpredictable. Right now, I'm not worried about it because my baby's like 25 pounds and my dog is 6, so the dog can't. He can bite the baby, but the baby will be fine. But a pit bull, like these pit bull terriers, like we've refined them to be the way that they are, like super muscular and this gameness ability that I talk about, the ability to just fight and not back down, to not care about pain.
Hmm.
But with these stories of like, yeah, human babies dying and attacking horses and other animals. The other day, okay, just like a week ago, I had to stop at the end of my street. There's a veterinarian. I don't know if you recall that, but at the end of my street, there's a vet. It's my dog's vet. And I stopped there to get some flea medicine for Coop, for our Chihuahua. And as I'm getting out, one of the vet techs is carrying a dog or has a dog on a leash, a big pit, one of those real short, stout, muscular pit bulls. And as I get out of my car, the pit starts coming at me, right? Like he's on the leash, but he's like, ruff, ruff. He's doing it. And because I've been reading this shit, I get back in my car, right? I'm like, fuck, I'm not doing this. So
I'm
I get in the
out.
car, I'm out, right? And so once the dog is inside, I get back out of my car and I'm like, okay, I'll go into the vet office now. But the owner of the dog is outside there with her car, and she looks at me and she says, it's okay. He doesn't have a problem with like people, but like it's other animals he has a problem with. So that like tells me that if I had like my Chihuahua with me, that dog might have went insane. Like it might have transferred to that's how, and they transfer their aggression, right? Like if you reach in to save like your baby or your dog or whatever, like they start attacking you.
Yeah.
And these dogs are scary. Like, and I've met pit bulls. I talk about this in the essay as well, right? I think towards the end, it's like I've met pit bulls that I've loved, like that I thought were such great dogs and so kind. But reading the stories that I did, I was like, man, that's happened. That's happened to people. That's real. It lives on Earth with us, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I guess they're related to eugenics is because humans have bred
right
dogs down to, or not down, or maybe up, or whatever your perspective is, into this muscular fucking killing machine with a lot of gameness, right? My stepdad Steve, he bred, or he had he was a wealthy man. He had a breeding facility for boxers, and that's why he always had all those boxers. Remember that when you first met me, we had all these boxers all the time, and then a boxer would die of heart disease like very early, 5 years old, and they'd get another one, and 5 years later that one would die of heart disease, and that's because all of the breeding for those animals was all. Boxers are notorious for having heart disease because of how they're bred. It's just it's forced breeding. That's a bad side effect of it, and also there's what do you call it when incest between the they breed the same dog over and over again because he's a really good dog. He's a really good specimen, and you want to have more.
Like Big Boss, right? Does it go back to that? Like it's like because there's one prime,
Yeah, I always thought it was fucked up, especially that he kept dying of heart disease. Their legs.
For what reason, right? Why have especially a boxer? Like those dogs were sweet, right? Max, I think Max was one of them. Max was a sweet dog. But it's like, what
they also
benefit
cut their tail off like when they
vanity?
come out. Yeah, it's a vanity thing for boxers for sure, because I went to a few of these shows and they prance them around and make sure that they have their ass sticking up in a certain way and their head staking up while they're walking like this, and then they grade them. It's like, their tail is sticking up. Their tail is sticking up perfectly. That's a 5. That's a hard 5 for that tail. But they also cut off the dog's tail, early on when it's like a pup. They cut its tail off. They chop its ears up. And they put them up in these like cones, these very akin to the Chinese foot binding. They put these dogs' ears up in cones and deform the ears and then chop them down so they stay up.
That's fucked up, right? That's really messed up.
Yeah, it is.
Weird bit to transfer human vanity onto a multi-century engineered eugenics program, right? That we're actively conducting right now. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm sympathetic to the villains who are like, I want to destroy all of you. That's all part of the reasons why I'm sympathetic.
I'm going to stop you right now. I'm not going to wait for society to change you or for you to die out.
You die.
You die right now.
Yeah.
I get it.
This is Speedrunner, yeah. So if pit bulls are so violent...
Speedrunner. We got to keep that one,
Yeah, that's happening. So, if pit bulls are so violent... Actually, let me ask you this question. If pits are violent because of breeding, do you think this could apply to different types of people? Like, people breeding isn't really selectively forced by other people, but it is selectively forced based on geographic location, cultural, political policies, and some other out of human control factors. So do you think that there could be specific people, and this could be a very racy type of question to answer, but do you think there could be certain type of people who might be more violent than other types of people based on their genetics, just like a dog is? Like, some people will deny that genetics have influence on people because that's not a nice thing to think about, but if we can breed a dog into a killing machine that's violent, You got to think that you could do it to humans too, and has that already happened? Culturally or geographically? What are your thoughts on this line of questioning? Hard
Yeah.
no. Do not bench in the bell curve.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
That's it.
I mean, how can anyone argue against it besides like some weird like human like centric world where God created us, right? Like if you agree in
Right. Yeah.
biology and that we're like part of the world, if it applies to dogs and anything else, then yeah, there are people with brains that. I don't know. I don't know enough about biology. Maybe there's like certain principles that can be affected like culturally, that maybe with certain kinds of like nutrition or systemic like changes or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Because like the bad argument would be like, okay, let me make this clear for anybody that records this or like wants to repeat
I'm recording this.
Let me make this clear,
Mm-hmm.
okay? This is just like an example of what a bad person might say.
Thank you for that disclaimer. I appreciate disclaimers.
And making sure that I'm talking about. Okay, so we're talking about.
I think there's a certain hubris about giving disclaimers because it's almost like you think you're better than the people that you're giving the disclaimer to. It's like, disclaimer, you're an idiot, but this is not really my reflective of my views. In case you couldn't tell,
it's my
you dumb
shield.
fuck.
Yeah, yeah, it is, and that's what it is.
But I do it too, so I mean, I get it. Go ahead.
So yeah, does it apply to people? Yes. I think because you can't argue against it. Fuck, I forget what I was gonna say. Okay, so back to the question. So I don't remember why I did this. I was gonna say something racy. I know I was. I was gonna do it in jest, but I don't remember exactly.
That's fine. It's probably better that you don't then, I guess. I don't know.
Probably. But look, I remember the question though. It's like, do I think, yeah, can we eugenicize people? I think. But then I don't know. People are the way they are for other reasons, and then it gets really complicated really fast.
So, if pit bulls are so violent, should we kill all the pit bulls?
Well, what was chapter 7? No.
No, right.
But yes. Honestly, to speedrun it, yes, you probably should. Because in the time it takes to let them all die out, and that's not even what we're doing. If even we like spayed and neutered every single one right now, still before they all die, we're gonna lose like 20 babies, right?
Yeah, possibly, but then you'd have to value the baby's life over the millions of pit bulls that you kill.
Well, I'm not.
Which is fine. You can value baby life over pit bulls. I'm not judging you. Like most people would.
Well,
almost everyone would.
You and I should, because of our values. You and I should like not value the baby over the human.
I value my baby.
In the essay, right? That like in the essay, I make the point that the people that would say that, like not you, but some people, like, yeah, you're killing a lot of pit bulls that are innocent, but they already kill innocent chickens and shit. Those people that own those pit bulls
it's a double standard, yeah.
So it's like
just kill all the pit bulls, yeah.
Just kill them. If you're fine with killing the, because my answer is no, right? I said that. Like I know, like let's fucking try to make the world
because
better.
they're lives, right? They're living, breathing creatures, and you're killing them, and you're taking their autonomy and their life away.
It seems like most of them are fine. It seems like most pit bulls, if they're raised well, they are fine.
You're damning an entire species, or not a species, but you're damning an entire breed of dog, just because maybe 60% of them might kill babies. I mean, that's
it's not that much. It's like
it's probably lower than that. Or I don't know. I'm just throwing.
But we should let them. I would commit to the idea of like don't breed more of them, maybe. Because I don't know what.
Yeah, that's my next question. So, if we're not going to kill all the pit bulls, shouldn't we at least stop letting them have violent child-killing babies?
Is there an argument to let those pit bulls breed? I don't see a reason.
I don't see other than if we're going to give them as much value as a human, we should probably give them the ability to continue their reproductive rights. Other than that argument, I would say no. I'm very sympathetic to just spaying all the female pits and then making sure that they have no babies. I'm sympathetic to that. That's fine. You're a violent breed. But as far as killing them outright, like right now, I would say that's way too
No.
far.
That's fucked up. Yeah, no.
I think I had another question about that.
It seems dark, but it's not, because they're gray wolves, is what they are. They're gray wolves that we've bastardized into these baby killing machines that aren't. They don't need to have babies to live fulfilling lives. They're animals. Like, this is me going like kind of right wing again, but it's like they're not the same as humans. They're just fucking not. Humans don't rip babies' throats out by the neck. I don't know if that's
Some of
ever
them do. I've
human.
been reading Blood Meridian, and that happens a lot in that one. There's a scene in Blood Meridian where Blood Meridian is such a weird book. I really like it. It's a really good book. But there's a scene where the main character is just walking through the west, like to the next town or whatever, and he just comes across a tree with just babies hung by it. And it's there's like 7 or 8 babies hung on this tree, and they were all by Indians, and they all had these little holes, poked up into the underjaw, and then they were tied up to the tree, upside down, just dead.
Fucked up.
That's like stuff that happens in Blood Meridian. It's just this crazy violence all the time. But people do it. Like, especially people back then. Like, people like the Indians did it in that case.
Berserk, but like levels of like that's
what
dark.
Blood Meridian is. Blood Meridian is like this berserk level like crazy shit, and they call it like an anti-Western because a lot of Westerns are kind of romanticized in a way where people kind of have these like moral values. But in this book, like, people are just killing each other. The whole book is just, you're following this group of people who just go around and scalp people's heads off, and every scalp is like $500. Like, they were commissioned by the Mexican government to scalp Indian heads, and you follow this group. That's the story. And there's very detailed descriptions of them just cutting the scalps off of their, the people's, and then every scalp is $500. That's like the main plot, like, and they call it an anti-Western because a lot of Westerns have these like these characters have values and there's good guys. In this, there's no real good guy. Like, everybody's a little fucked and everybody's violent, and I don't know. It's just a very interesting book, for sure. But I don't want to get off topic. Anyway, I thought I had something else to say about pit bulls, but I can't remember it. Pit bulls. Should we spay all the pit bulls? Should this be a legal requirement for pit bulls?
I mean, I think I mentioned that Australia, I think, has already like because there's this pit bull variant, right, called the XL Bully, and I think Britain is like on the. It's the XL Bully. They're kind of short, but they're super ripped and they're super stout. And the XL Bully, like something like 50 or 70% of the XL Bullies can all be traced to like this one fucking pit bull like stud that's been bred like tens of thousands of times.
Obscurity.
And so that reminded me of like the Big Boss, like Solid Snake kind of thing. But yeah, these XL Bullies, like Hardy in Australia, they've outlawed. Like, you've got to, I think either you have to spay and neuter them or you can't buy and sell them anymore. But it's almost kind of scary. Or, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just interesting that we'll do it in very extreme cases. But when it gets a little bit fuzzier, we're like, actually, maybe we shouldn't, outlaw or make it a requirement to spay them. But when it's very clear, that you will. Right?
Yeah.
With the XL Bully. Extra large bully variant.
The XL Bully. It's insane. I saw one of the videos I saw that wasn't too bad. It was a guy, I think in London, it was in England, I think in London, and it was a couple dudes with an XL Bully, and they were sicking it on another guy, but like, he didn't die or anything, but it was like, I don't know. They were letting him like they were letting the pit like nip, and then they were yanking him back. And it was so close, and it really seemed like if they just let go of the leash, he probably would have killed that guy. Oh, you're looking at it, yeah. It was one of those kinds of dogs, and like that dog would kill you, dude. I think. I mean, you're probably stronger than me, but that dog would kill most men.
No, that dog would kill me. That dog would kill you. It would probably kill most people. Because their jaws like lock onto you and stuff, right?
Hey, look at those muscles, dude. There's nothing you could do And they're
Like, why would you
beautiful.
breed a dog? I don't think it's a beautiful dog at all. We have different concepts of beauty. Obviously, it's an aesthetic value. It's totally subjective.
Well, I just think as a life, I think.
As
It's
a
like
life, yeah.
it could be a sweetheart, right? I've seen dogs that look kind of like that, were really nice and cute, but
Yeah. I
yeah,
just don't understand the appeal of like putting human like buff man chest on dog.
Yeah.
Like it looks literally like, I don't know, like a human's chest with fur on it, like malformed, and they're like an Arnold Schwarzenegger type that's just malformed.
Yeah,
and has this demon's head on it.
Yeah. And
It's
it's like
almost
they
bred
use it
to
as
look
like
kind of like a human.
Yeah. And I think you see people with it as like it's like an extension of their masculinity that people try to use it as. Like, and it's
What
like,
about
no,
these
you're
people? What
just
about
like,
these people, like that footballer who got in trouble for like breeding these and then just making them kill each other in his backyard?
yeah. And that's not even just one dude, right? That's like they dogfight these dogs, right?
Those are the type of people who, if you put them in the Wild West, like in Blood Meridian, they would literally just be killing babies, scalping people, and not giving a shit. Like they have this thing in their head where they are just they're violent people, and I think this is the default state for. That's kind of like, I think kind of like one of the points of Blood Meridian is like if there's a lawless like default state of humanity, it's probably this fucking shit. That's, I think, one of the points of the book. And like people who would do this to a dog, breed them and kill them in the backyard. I mean, if you remove laws, like real quick, they'd be having like blood sports in their backyard with real people and killing each other for sport, and be drinking beers and like laughing about it, like, oh, little Jimmy got his freaking heart ripped out by George. That was crazy. You actually ripped his heart out. And then they'd like take a shot and laugh and then go to bed. I don't know.
I don't understand that it happens. It does happen, and it has happened, and I just don't, because I look at that dog there, and I'm like, it looks like it's in pain. It looks like that dog looks like it hurts to exist.
You think it looks like it's in pain?
Look at his eyes. Zoom in on the eyes.
Yeah, I was trying to zoom in. Like,
is that a no zoom that I ranted about on Mastodon? Like sometimes you zoom in and won't let you.
There you go. This is a great stream. This is the best stream on Twitch right now, I think. You click into this stream and you just see this huge dog. These two random losers, these two fucking nerds just sitting here with fucking Metal Gear playing on the upper left. He does look like he's like, please kill me almost, yeah. It's like a please kill me look.
That is not a look that Hannibal or even like my Chihuahua. My Chihuahua doesn't look that beleaguered, right? That thing looks like he wants to kill a baby just so you kill him, right? He's like, I'm going to kill a baby so you get rid of me.
I will take a life so you take my life. Because I'm incapable of killing myself, at least in any sort of easy way, as a dog. And maybe dogs were bred like so they couldn't pick up a gun and shoot themselves. Obviously wolves can't do that either, right? So that's a stupid statement, but it's still something to consider, But he does look sad. He almost kind of looks like a clownish sad, like a sad clown. He looks like he wants to make everybody laugh at the party, but after the party at 2 a.m., he's like in the corner, like fucking cutting himself, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Jamming a broken beer bottle into his leg and not even feeling pain.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's full of funny jokes and like, he's having a good time.
I've never thought really about dogs are. It's so weird that we don't even think about that we made dogs. Like we made them. They weren't dogs. Like it was just wolves out in the wild.
Well, actually, aren't dogs just a social construct? Just kidding.
Yes.
Yeah. No. I agree with you. We did make what we consider dogs. Yeah. I don't think we did that to cats.
Not as much. It doesn't seem like we don't. There aren't any cats. I don't think there's no cat killing baby stories. There's no cat hate subreddit. There's no. Cats are really good.
Have you seen like the monkey hate stuff? There's like this weird like niche of YouTube where it's like people like harming monkeys, and there's like videos that stay up for like a few months before they get removed, and they're all titled like "I hate monkeys," and this little demon monkey like watches I pull its tail and like stick something up his butt. Like there's like look this up on YouTube,
No.
on Reddit. There's like this very weird underground monkey hate thing going on, and people can't seem to like get to the bottom of like why it exists and who's running it. Um, it's very interesting. It's not cool. I don't. Monkeys are freaky to me, but you know I wouldn't torture them for fun and then post it on YouTube.
No, I wouldn't.
Yeah. So at the end of the
I wouldn't
essay,
torture.
you say, "What my dog would say about me if it could speak haunts me." Why?
Yeah, that
Why do you
line
say
is
that?
really. That was a really cool line. I love that one. Really because like, okay, go really dark. I don't want to go really dark. I don't want to go too dark. But yeah, my dog has probably witnessed like every side of me. Right, every dog that I've ever had has probably witnessed. Probably knows more about me than my wife even. Like my wife knows like 99% of me. The dog probably knows 100%. I think. And if a dog had a human brain, like the dog could really fuck me up. I think. Um, and the way I wrote that was, I think was I was trying to be poetic, you know, with the haunt me stuff. But like, but yeah, that's the thing. It's like the dogs, we fuck with them. We fuck with their genetics. We kill them. We help them. We give them medicine. We do whatever. We make the XL bully. We do all this shit. Um, and at the same time, like they're better than us. Even the baby killers are better than us. I think maybe in a way, right?
You think
Like they
so?
didn't choose to be born. They didn't choose it. They weren't put in proximity with the baby. The person that had the baby also bought the XL bully that killed their baby. Just like Penny in the essay, they bought the dog. It seemed like a nice dog, but
True.
yeah,
I don't know if buying a dog is the same as killing a baby, but
it's close. It's
it's
in the
close.
same
Yeah.
ballpark. It's in the same ballpark
You
at
know what I
least.
think is really weird? I made a post about this on Mastodon, and I didn't. I think I could, you know, we could write another essay on this probably, but like I can go into. This is really weird to me. I can go into a Petsmart and buy a ferret for $100. It's so
Mm-hmm.
fucking weird. Isn't it? Like the little
Yeah,
soul is worth $100
yeah.
according to
I
you
had to give
know
you dollars.
inflation and like other things. It's just like I can
Yeah.
buy this little life for $100, and with like a ferret or a hamster, I could go out in the parking lot and rip its head off, and I would have no consequence. There'd be
Look,
no consequences other than people looking at me and being like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" You know. Obviously, I
I
wouldn't
just
do that,
people.
right? But like, I'm just saying, like, I think it's very weird that somebody can go and pay $2,000 for a pit bull, and this is the price that we've put on their little lives. Um, I don't know. When you start, I got into this argument with somebody on Mastodon about food, and it came down to eugenics at some point. But the argument was something like about hunting deer, and I was like, I don't think we should go out and just kill deer. And they were like, well, the population will go out of control and they'll get disease and they'll die, and then at a certain point, humans have to step in and kill the deer to prevent these kind of natural atrocities from happening. And it's kind of like that's great and all, but there's like other ways we could do it. Like for example, we could sterilize the deer instead of kill them, and then they couldn't have babies. Like in a generation they'll have less children or they'll have no children or whatever. And then the argument there is like, well, we don't want to breed out entire species of animals. And my question to that would be like, why not? Why
Yeah.
wouldn't we want to breed out like let's say if we bred out dogs, like that would suck momentarily, but who cares?
Yeah.
Why? Why would we care? I don't like I when I started thinking about it, I do not value things that aren't alive. Like
Yeah.
from a perspective. So like if I'm gonna say like I'm gonna just make sure that every deer is fucking infertile forever and deers die out. Who am I really hurting there? Other than maybe like ecosystem things going on, but let's pretend that's not part of the equation. Like
Mm.
we value the idea of like making sure a species continues to exist, but what we're doing is we're valuing some sort of weird concept, and we're putting value on non-lives as if they're lives, which
Right.
is very weird to me. And this gets into the abortion argument a little bit, which is like a fetus is like people can argue like when a life starts or whatever, and this isn't what the essay is about, but people can do these arguments about when life starts, et cetera. But at some point, you're at this very weird area where it's like, well, does life start in daddy's ball sack? Like, like we can do these weird areas. It's just I don't value things that aren't alive. Like I don't value things. I do value things that aren't alive. Like I value reading right now Blood Meridian or playing Phantasy Star. I value those things, but not in a way of like a life. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
A lot of people seem to value non-life in the same way that they value life, depending on what the concept is that they're thinking about. And in this argument that I had with the person, the concept was unborn deer. Which, why should I give a shit about unborn deer? Fuck them. They're not. When I say fuck them, I'm saying fuck nothing, because there's nothing there. There's nothing.
They're not there. It's not there. Yeah, there's nothing. Yeah, absolutely.
Very strange to me. If we bred out the pit bull, or we stopped them from breeding, people would say that's eugenics. People would say it's eugenics, and it is eugenics, but nothing's getting hurt.
Because there's nothing there. Yeah, you're right. It's like,
yeah. There's nothing there other than the dog's maybe ability. Like, oh, would the dog be sad that it can't have a baby? I don't think so. Maybe humans would. So it gets a little bit more complicated there, but like a dog wouldn't for sure.
But the dog, even the thing is, even if we go back, the dog itself is human made, right? That it was a wolf, and we were like, let's pick the wolves that we like the most, and let's like let them mate, and let's do that. Now I'm looking at Grimlock here on Monster Bully Kennels, and you can get a stud fee of $5,500 on approved females.
Oh, that's based. That's very cool.
Yeah.
It's even like if you apply this to even if you apply this to humanity, it's like if we sterilized everybody, that would suck, and it would be a violation of people's rights, I imagine. But what if everybody agreed to it? There would be certain people that, I don't know, would probably be like, let's say every female agreed to it, hypothetically. There would be certain people who would be like, this is terrible, the human race wouldn't live on, but like, who cares? Why do we care about this?
Doesn't matter.
Who fucking cares?
Doesn't matter.
I don't know, this is very anti-natalist in a way, because like you could say like, why continue to have children and persist life, and that's obviously a biological imperative. I think there's something very selfish about having children, and I think one of the essays that I was going to write maybe one day is about anti-natalism and how probably it's not good. It's probably not ethical to have children. And the more I think about this, the more it seems like it's legit. Like it's pure selfishness and biological urge is the only reason we have children. And it kind of ties back into the beginning of what we were talking about. Like, let's say somebody knows that they might have a child who has an enlarged brain and can only live for 4 years. And for 3 of those years, they're in pain. I would say it's very selfish in that situation for somebody to continue knowing that, to have a child. But also, if we take that and we move it smaller, and let's say like I had my son Arthur. Let's say Arthur ends up getting his leg chopped off or getting hit by a car. Like, right. I brought about that. I'm the one who put him in the path to get hit by that car and like live in a wheelchair or have a terrible life for the rest of his life. Like, he had no choice in the matter, right? It's very weird to think.
Yeah, it's very weird.
It's very weird.
It's all very weird.
Yeah, it's very strange.
And what kind of...
I'm just rambling. I'd have to write something down to get my thoughts better on this, but I think it is selfish to have children, and a strong anti-natalist would say even if you lived a perfect life, okay, but you can't guarantee that, and even if you like pricked your thumb a little bit and had a little bit of pain, at that point, that life is completely unjustified because of pain.
But do you feel this way about? Like, here would be my counter argument in a way. My late in the stream like counter argument would be, because I fully agree with all the. I will say about myself that I'm an anti-natalist that loves my child and would make my child over and over.
Same. Yeah, same. I have 2 children and they're fine. Yeah.
and I agree with it. But oh god, I had a good counter. Let me think about it. So I don't know. I don't think
Like,
it matters. I
did
don't.
it have to do with positivity or the benefits of being alive and feeling good? Because obviously there's things we do in life where make us feel really good, and it's not like every day we go through life wanting to die, right?
Yeah, I guess that was it. Yeah, it's like you don't feel like. Do you hate your mom and dad for creating you? Like I don't.
No.
I'm pretty based about it right now. I love it. I love being alive. I love my problems. Like I can deal with it, and I'm learning to deal with the pain. Like there's a lot to bitch about, but I love bitching about it. I love figuring out the problems. Like it's cool to do this chaos than it is to not do it. And I
Mm-hmm.
think I'm gonna try my best. Like you and me are probably the best ones to raise children because we can like anti-natalists are probably the best one to have kids. Probably,
Probably.
maybe
Yeah. The
in a weird
hypocrites are
way.
the ones who understand, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, like it sucks, but like I'm gonna make sure my son has the best time like that possible between me and him. Um, because people that are like having children are good will say shit like, "Well, you gotta give a job, you gotta have a job, or that's the way it is," or those kind of like
Oh, right.
diatribes.
Yeah, I see where you're going. Yeah, for me, it's almost like, if Arthur or Abby got to a point where they were old, um, a lot of people's philosophy, like my sister and
Mm.
her husband had a daughter, and her name was, I think, Shyla. And Shyla started, like, was 12, 13, and she started doing drugs in high school. And they were like, if you continue to do drugs, you are out of the house and will not support you. Like 14. And she
Mm.
did. And they caught her and they sent her off to live with her druggy mom, um, who's a total
Well,
druggie and in and out of jail. But they totally washed their hands
yeah,
of the problem, of the perceived problem. Almost as if, I don't know, kind of like what you're saying, like, oh, like
no,
this is life, and you need to get better, and we don't have to deal with you. And I don't know. To me, I feel like if Arthur was doing that, I'd probably keep, even if he was like a druggie. At a certain point, maybe I might cut him off, but I don't think I could ever do it.
it depends on how much harm he was causing. But I say
Right.
about Thorny a lot to Sarah. I say I love my son so much. I love the little man like so much that like I want him to live with me forever. Like when I think about parents, they're like, you got to move out. Like I don't want my son to move out. Like I want to
Yeah,
build a big house. It'd be
yeah,
fucking cool to chill with my son. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I had that thought about Abby as well. She's 10 now, and like it's kind of like it'd be cool if you lived with us forever. If I had a big, if I
Aw.
have a big enough house or whatever, I wouldn't be opposed to that. Like some parents seem to be. Like some parents are like, you're
Yeah.
18, why are you still living with me? And there's this whole
Yeah.
level of like personal responsibility, and at 18, you kind of might want to expect your child to branch out and live on their own and want to do that, and start their own like pseudo, their own
Mm.
life or whatever, and that's fine. But like the whole I'm going to kick you out when you're 18 or you're 20 now and you're way too old to be here. I don't know. It's just very.
No. What's wrong with my son living with me? Like I love my son. I
I
don't
can
want him
make
to
the
move
argument why your
away.
son's living with you because you're enabling him to be a lazy motherfucker. That's what these people would say. Like you need to kick
Yeah.
him in the butt and make sure that he can live on his own and he can be a
Yeah.
man. That's what they'd say.
Well, if he wasn't working or something, I think like I would like imagine like a world where my son like works a job and like why can't people? I'm not posing this to you. I really think it's you and me posing this to the outside world. Like why can't people just? I think the society wants they
Why
want
can't
my
people just
son to feel the
exist?
need to branch out to like yeah we just exist. But I think like we want. I don't know. I think like a lot of people want they want to sell more houses. They want to sell more subscriptions. They want to sell more shit. So they don't want people to live in all this thing. I think really the best city, the this is the most extreme place that the Pitbull essay has taken me is that the best city is just one big house that people live in.
You think so? I think there might be a situation in which like maybe Arthur gets old, and this might be just me. I don't know. We might have different personalities in this way. Let's say Arthur gets older and he's like really good at everything I'm good at and like 10 times better at it. Like I don't know if I'd be able to like
Oh, like you'd be a little like jealous of it.
Yeah,
I
he'd like
think
eclipse me in every way. I don't know if I would become like bitter and like hate him. I don't think I would though. Because he's my son, it's a different dynamic.
because I made him, I feel like I could take credit for that, and I think
Yeah,
the
maybe.
idea that I could take credit for it would be
But you hear stories about like
enough.
this at all times. Like I watched
Yeah,
an interview about Billy Corgan and his dad. Like his dad treats him like this, like because his dad wanted to be a rock star and didn't, and Billy Corgan did when he got famous with Smashing Pumpkins. So like his dad very early on like almost shunned him and was very rude and like terrible to him. And I think he came around later in life, like 20 years later, he would like show back up. Um, so
like I could see myself wanting to feel that. Like I could feel like those emotions naturally coming up, but I think I'm smart enough to be like, yeah, like if he does like things better than me, that's great. Like that's really great because I've helped him.
Mhm.
Like okay, like if I was against him and he was still doing it, maybe that would piss me off. But like I'm not gonna be against my son. So if my son wants to be a rock star, I'll teach him how to play guitar. And if he becomes a rock star and I don't, then that's fine.
Fuck him.
But I can.
I'll kill him.
But I can. Yeah, fuck him. Fuck him.
Somebody in the chat said, "Fucking pugs are the reason why you don't do eugenics." First of all, I don't fuck pugs. Um, next, look at those squish-nosed little motherfuckers. They can barely breathe. Yeah.
No, I agree. My wife had a pug when she was growing up, and sounds like a lovely dog. But yeah,
I
they
know.
die, and they're fucking weird.
Yeah. I did say people on Mastodon could come in and harass us, and this guy's telling you to fix your camera. He says
Which
he
one?
says one of the streamers has this camera like my grandpa trying to FaceTime.
Probably me.
Yeah, I think it's you, buddy.
I mean, this is my goddamn phone,
No,
brother.
he's actually fixing it. It's his
I'm
goddamn
not
phone,
fixing
brother.
it. I don't understand the problem. I don't understand the problem.
It's pointing at the ceiling.
It's my pop socket, bro. It's the pop socket
How do
at
you
the
know that's
angle.
not the floor and he's upside down, like hanging?
That's a good point. That's a
It's all a
really good
matter of
point.
perspective, and this guy's perspective is
If I
totally.
flip straight,
He didn't
if I
think
flip
about that,
straight,
He's in the philosophy chat and he's not thinking about this shit. Like, give me a break. That's the first thing I would have thought of. Is this guy actually upside down?
Hold on, I can prop it up.
He says, "I'm
Fix
just
your camera.
gaslighting you. I don't care."
I want it to fix. I'll point it at the floor. Okay. No, that's good.
I think it needs to point more at the ceiling, where you just your scalp.
Just completely, just the other way.
There we go. This chatter's coming in like a with gameness, like a pit bull attacking the cameras.
Not letting go. I'm
Really
trying my best.
aggressive. You came in at the very end. We're like done with the questions and everything.
I have a laptop. The laptop's right here, but historically, it does. If I hang the pop socket on the laptop, and that gives another one, is that better?
That looks very nice,
That
actually.
probably is actually. That probably is better. So thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, there we go.
better. You
That actually
you
is
took
cool.
the
Thank
advice
you.
of the pit bull chatter, and now you have a better camera position. It's awesome.
It's good. It works. It works.
It does. So my last question to you was: you said what my dog would say about me would haunt me. That's fine. Provide one real life example of what your dog has seen you do that you wouldn't want other people to see you do.
Was that on the list?
No, I added that. You don't have
Like
to do that.
no, I will masturbate primarily, right? Like I don't always
Masturbation,
make sure
yeah.
the dog's out of the room.
No,
Right? If a
I
dog,
always make sure my cats are out of earshot, like when I masturbate, and it
you,
almost haunts my
really?
brain. Like if I think if my cat can jump on top of me while I'm like potentially jump on top of me while I'm wanking it, like that's a no. That's a turn off to me. You have to you have to get out of the room.
I mean, I don't have cats, so I don't like cats. Will do right. Cats will jump on top of you. My Chihuahua, I'm not. He's not even a big fan of me. So, but yeah, I don't really want. Yeah, my dog see me. My dog has probably seen me though. Probably seen me do stuff like that. But also like get in arguments, right? Like I don't know. Like if my wife and I argue, or probably never when you and I have argued because it's always been in the back of the house. But yeah, and going back younger in my life when I was less mature and like with Hannibal and stuff, like there are times I was probably like less than tolerant with them. That like, yeah, man,
Beat the
because
shit
we
out of
assume
them.
that dogs. Yeah, I mean, we assume that dogs are lesser than us, so we will let ourselves become lesser than what we present ourselves to be in front of them. And that maybe is a central part of the essay. It's like not only are we fucking cruel to them, but we've done this cruelty and we don't even respect them as much as we respect other people. Like I will jerk off in front of a dog, but I won't jerk off in front of you, even though I've done horrible things to this dog. In the least, you know, I don't know. There's something there. There's something there that's weird. There's a hypocrisy there that warrants investigation.
It does warrant investigation, but there's no hypocrisy on my end because I will remove the cat from the room before I do the masturbation.
You're always alone when you're masturbating?
Yes.
Never a dog or a cat? Never a dog or a
Absolutely.
cat?
I can't do it.
That's
I
so
can't
noble.
do it in my mind. It's not noble. It's selfish because it just haunts my brain. Like, I don't know. When I was a kid, I used to think that like my dead grandpa would like, you know, I'm not even religious or believe in this mysticism, but like when I was younger, I used to think like, what if my dead uncle that committed suicide is actually just watching me, you know,
Yeah.
masturbate right now, and that would weird me out too. So, you know,
Yeah.
a spectral psychic being turned me off when I was a child, and now when I'm an adult, actual psychic beings being around and witnessing me do the tainted act turns me off hardcore.
I guess
So I
my
removed them from the
chihuahua,
room.
like, my chihuahua sucks his own dick, like, all the time in front of me, right? So I just assume...
You just assume he's fine, yeah. They probably,
I think
to be
like,
honest, it's just a mental hang up, right? Because
I
your
put him off
cat,
the bed. I don't kick him out the room. I'll put him off the bed. I don't want him on the place with me.
yeah, your cat will see you probably masturbating and probably think nothing of it. Like, oh, human does weird human thing. And they don't give a shit. It's all mental and psychic in my own brain that makes me remove them. Probably because I value them a little bit more than other people do, and a little bit more than you as well. Son of a bitch.
Or also,
You
I think back to the question, like a dog, like if a dog, what my dog would say about me would haunt me because not only just like sick shit like masturbation or like any other degenerate shit that a person might do in the privacy of their own home, but like
they would be like, I love him. He beat me, but I still love him. That's the haunting part to me. Like, you should hate me.
Right, and they do love.
They're so innocent, you know. They can be abused. They can be abused to like hell and high water, but they don't form this this intense hatred of people. At least normally,
they will love you as much as.
Not that I've ever beaten a dog. I haven't. I've just seen this.
Or a pit bull that kills a baby will still love. Can still be nice to somebody else.
Yeah,
it's weird.
When they're done like ripping the baby's throat out, they'll go and like lick, you know, lap up the blood or whatever, and maybe toss it around like a toy.
Yeah,
I think you write something like that.
I know what. Yeah. Because I wanted the idea to be like the dog is not really villainous. It's just doing what it thinks is okay to do.
Yeah.
Which is what we all do.
With dogs, it's almost like dogs are somewhat intelligent, and I would say, I don't know, pit bulls are more violent. I definitely agree with that. We've already been through that. I would say if this pit bull was like smacked real hard on the butt, like every time it got a little too antsy with the child in this story, probably would have been less inclined to kill the kid. I would say that there's some poor animal raising here in this story.
I hope so. That's the
like
argument.
Mommy, Penny bite me. Then don't put your hand in its mouth. No, you should probably go over to Penny and like, you know, have some sort of consequence for that behavior instead of that. And maybe that would have prevented this part here where she says pen and then Penny. The mom began to say, but as cogent English word vanished at what she looked up to see, Penny was playing. She was playing with her son, but her son was not having fun anymore. Penny's not letting go. Her son is screaming. He can't scream. His neck is in Penny's mouth. Flashes of graduation and of grocery store parking lot selections are reflected in the blood staining Penny's mouth. Yeah, so Penny kills a child, and that sucks.
That sucks. That's pretty bad.
You know, my wife read this essay because she reads some of our essays.
Oh my goodness!
She was like, "That story about Penny was terrible."
Oh my god! Like bad written or like just horrible?
Like horrible to read. Like reading David Foster Wallace's Incarnations of, I would imagine. You know, it's probably something a similar experience she had. Pulling the animal away caused it to jerk its head sharply in the other direction. The sounds of alien breathing permeated the small den. I'm trying to find like the. Let's see.
I like the human Pez dispenser. The image of the baby's head just with the throat. You know,
Where did you put that?
It was somewhere in there. There's a human Pez. I just saw it. The human Pez dispenser.
Yeah, that's a good description of
a mauling, right?
Oh yeah, I like how you use the proper syntax as well for Pez. The esophageal gaps of a human Pez dispenser. Her son's head limply twitching in Penny's mouth. Yeah, that's terrible.
Happens.
The Pez dispenser is a little, not criticizing you or anything, I think that's a great line, but a Pez dispenser is more mechanical to me. In this case, it's more like, I don't know, like a Raggedy Andy doll with the threads of the neck like coming out, and it's just kind of flapping wildly all over the place.
Oh yeah.
It's terrible.
It's terrible. It's terrible to imagine.
Yeah, it's really awful. It's just terrible.
And then your baby's dead, and it's gone, and all the hopes you've had for the baby, everything you thought about, like it's all fucking gone. And there's that dog. Like that's fine with you. That's
because you wanted to pay $2,000 for the XL Bully gameless dog. Now your little son's dead. Congratulations.
And it hasn't happened that often. But it has happened.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes me think, like, maybe just leave the wolves alone, right? Because, like, the wolves, I don't read any stories about wolves doing that to babies.
Yeah, that's... Are you being, like, stupid or on purpose? Wolves kill people all the time.
Not babies.
There's this whole story in Australia, or it might have been New Zealand, about this woman who went on a camping trip with her family and the baby disappeared. And she insisted that dingoes came in the night and literally took the baby out of the tent and ate it. And nobody believed her. And I think she might have been persecuted. And then, like, 10 years later, they found, like, a den of, like, some baby's remains and, like, obviously eaten by dingoes.
By dingoes. I think there's a...
Like, imagine your son getting eaten by dingoes on a camping trip, and then you're put in jail for it. Like, imagine how bitter and just terrible that would be. That's like I can't even imagine. That's like the lowest tier quality of life that you could possibly have. Even if you had an amazing life before that whole, like, your dingo got eaten by dingoes and then you were accused of murdering your baby, that takes all of that goodness and destroys it. That's the worst life you could have.
That's a really bad life. There was an episode of The Office, I think, where one of the characters, I think Kevin, the accountant Kevin, he says something about dingo babies, and I think that's what he was referencing.
It's probably referencing it. There's a Seinfeld episode where, like, Elaine says something about it too, so it's referenced a good bit in media.
Wow, the horrible lives that people live. Yeah. All right.
I know.
We are at 2:15.
Yeah, we are at 2. The recording's technically 2:08, but we had one chatter. We had one engaged chatter until we started talking about, like, actual real stuff, and then they stopped engaging because, you know, the real stuff that we talk about, the philosophical, ethical stuff that requires you to think, it's not engaging to the average person who will come into a chat and just criticize your camera. That's, you know, that person is just here to feel better about themselves, and any sort of higher thinking is lost on that type of person. You can't engage with it. You know, you fixed your camera. They don't have anything else to say. They're
I
out.
fixed it.
You know.
They're gone. They're left.
Like, you want to talk about the ethics of dog breeding?
No. We shouldn't breed dogs, right? We should stop. We should leave dogs. Why are we bringing animals into the house? We shouldn't.
It's just selfishness all the way down. That's why we have children.
Yeah.
He also said he was gaslighting us. I'm just gaslighting you. I don't care. I don't think he's using the term gaslighting here properly. Gaslighting is when you
No.
trick somebody into thinking that they did something that they didn't do. I don't think that happened here.
Okay, so here's why children are different, I think. Here's what I've noticed with Thorny. Like, I've had cats, I've had dogs, and, like, my son... Okay, like, when I try to put a sweater on my Chihuahua hates it. And
Right.
anytime I ever tried to put, like, a shirt or a sweater on a cat, like, the cat would not fucking move.
Yeah, cats hate
My
that shit.
my son, he's not perfect, but, like, he acquiesces to all of our human bullshit so well. It's just so obvious
It's charming.
he's one of us, right? What'd you say?
That is charming, yeah.
Yeah, it's like he puts his shirt on, he puts his arms up, and at first I was like, wow, that's so crazy. But it's not crazy, because he's one of us. They just do the same things
Well,
that we do.
he's also been conditioned to put his hands up and all that, Even Arthur now will, like, spread his legs when I do his diaper change.
Yeah. They pick up on it. They just pick up on it so fast.
They do.
I don't know.
I
don't know the larger point.
You don't have a larger point. Oh, well, that's all I had. I mean, we can end the recording. Do you have any final words about this essay? I thought it was a really good essay. I think it's better than the OJ essay, so it's probably, in my opinion, your best essay on this.
Yeah, it's my favorite.
At least
yeah,
from
thank you.
at least from a very entertaining to read. And when I read through it again for this video, it was actually very easy to read. And it was fun to read, and it was good to go through it again. And I thought it was a lot longer than it was. It actually didn't take that long for me to read. So I thought it was really good. Better than anything I've written, as always. So, any final words on just the discussion as a whole, or the essay?
Well, I think, if I was going to have viewers, analyze what you're doing. What are you doing? Why are you doing it? Why do you have these misconceptions? Why do you have these preconceptions? If you're playing Metal Gear Solid, what can that help you do? Like, are you just passing time, or are you looking for answers about your life? And do you have a dog? And if you have a dog, does that relate to you playing Metal Gear Solid? Answer the questions. Do you have an XL bully? That's another question. There's a lot of questions. Ask yourself questions. That's what I would say.
Yeah, questions are important. Yeah, ask the questions. Cool. Well, I thought this was good. I'm glad that you weren't muted for half of it. I'll stop the recording.